Chapter 162. Hiss. Isn't the attack of the kettle bug zero? Professor Cheong-si was still hoping that this unique golden kettle bug would bring some surprises. But now that the surprise had really come, she was completely stunned. Wasn't this surprise a little too big? As everyone knew, the kettle bug was a magic elf card with zero attack power. Its high defense power of 2,200 came at the cost of completely sacrificing its attack power and mobility. Even the golden card that was known as the God's card, in the past could not change this point. It was even more impossible to destroy the little rock dragon with one punch. Then it's a problem with the ultimate skill. Professor Cheong-si calmed down and immediately realized where the problem was. In this world, the kettle bug was a super rare magic elf that did not exist in reality. It only appeared in experiments with a very low probability. The first website was https://vipkanshu. And so far, most of the recorded kettle bugs were white cards. The few that were at most blue cards only had one passive skill. Sturdy. Dark's golden kettle bug could be said to be one of a kind. In other words, it had at least 3 skills that no one knew about. What kind of ultimate skill could make a 3-star magic elf card so exaggerated? Professor Cheong-si was puzzled. Professor Cheong-si was shocked, let alone Doran, who was on the field. Both of them usually summoned first-tier magic elf cards. How could his magic elf be destroyed with one punch? Doran looked at the little rock dragon's attack value that had temporarily become 1050 and the entire magic elf card that had dimmed. He became anxious. The little rock dragon could be said to be his ace magic elf. After using the ultimate skill, its attack value of 1,800 points should be unparalleled in 3-star territory. What kind of monster is that kettle bug? While the corner of Doran's mouth twitched, he noticed that the countdown for the first round had ended and the match had entered the second round. He quickly pulled out 2 new magic elf cards from the top of the deck. The number of cards in his hand became 6. 6 magic guide cards. Other than the magic bullet spell, the rest were all magic guide elf cards. Doran didn't have time to think and quickly chose the Nut Dragon to summon. Card name, Nut Dragon. Type, elf card. Level, *****. Race, dragon. Attribute, dragon/grass. Magic power, 1200 attack, 900 defense, 1300 ultimate skill, none. Doran was no longer as hot-blooded as he was at the start of the battle. The nut dragon he chose in a hurry was a small dinosaur with a head like a nut. Only its head had a defense of 1,300 points. It was a defense-oriented magic fairy. When the attack failed, they would subconsciously seek stability. At the same time, Dake drew 2 new magic cards. 2 cards appeared in his hand. They were Energy Potion and Diru Beast. The moment the cards entered his hand, Dake began a new round of summoning. Kettle only had the power for one punch. After one punch, the ultimate skill power trick, its effect disappeared. Equal distribution of power could be maintained for a longer time. Its attack was still at 750. But with Kettle's movement speed, it couldn't touch the opponent's magic ball. Illusory Beast. Ibu was only able to protect the ball. This was also the biggest flaw in Dake's deck, the lack of a powerful 3-star magic guide elf. So he used the sacrificial summoning in the second round. With Fantasy Beast, Ibu and Kettle as sacrifices, sacrificial summoning, Diru Beast. The 2 magic guide elves on the field turned into white light at the same time and gathered in the middle. The white light shot out from the Diru Beast magic guide card and merged into it. A white cat with blue vertical pupils slowly floated out from the sacrificial summoning light with one knee on the ground. The whole process took 10 seconds. Diru Beast join. Almost at the same time, new magic guide elves appeared in the summoning area of both sides. But the expressions of both sides were very different. Sacrificial summoning, it's actually sacrificial summoning. Seeing the appearance of the white cat, Doran's face turned green. Using 1-star and 3-star as sacrifices, I summoned a 4-star magic guide elf. He quickly checked his hand. But looking left and right, there were only elven cards, and there wasn't even a 4-star card in his hand. There were no more powerful high-star magic guide elves. There were also no magic cards to resolve the situation. It was only the second round, and Teddy Doran was already in a desperate situation. Diru Beast Cat Fist. With the support of the Divine Holy Ring, the Diru Beast's magic power, attack and defense reached 2,000, 2,400, and 1,400 respectively. At this stage, it was almost invincible. What was even more outstanding was its high mobility in addition to its 3 measurements. It easily crossed the field that was only 30 meters long. The cat's claw, which was copied from the Golden Sword Lion's claw data, instantly tore apart the nut dragon that specialized in defense. The nut dragon screamed and turned into light, leaving only a pitch-black claw shadow in the air. The magic guide ball life barrier with only 1,000 magic power points couldn't withstand the power of the Diru Beast's claw at all. As the life barrier was shattered in one strike, this battle where both players had gone all out was completely over. Beep. After Professor Cheong-Si's whistle sounded. It was half a beat late. The surrounding students were in an uproar. Discussions sounded crazily. While most of the little magicians were still relying on the random refining method to gamble, their students of the same grade had already refined an extremely powerful 4-star magic guide elf. The light array of the sacrificial summoning spell was like a key that directly knocked on one's heart, making one unable to help but yearn for the even more resplendent world behind the magic gate. There was no doubt that Dark Diamond had played a leading role. While Professor Cheong-Si was praising in his heart, he couldn't help but worry about Doran. I hope he won't fall silent because of a momentary failure. But if he couldn't even cross such a small hurdle, it wasn't worth looking forward to. Of course, as a professor, she would try her best to do some psychological counseling. Battle ended. Winner Dake Dimming. End stage. Dake kept the Diru Beast back into the magic card, then took out the deck on the card table and prepared to leave the stage. But just as he was about to turn around, a shout from Doran came from the opposite side. Dake stopped and chose to listen. Doran gritted his teeth. The fall from heaven to hell made his voice tremble. Just go ahead, I'll definitely catch up. Dake's expression eased a little, then he smiled and replied, I'm looking forward to it. Chapter 163. His initial policy was to reduce social interactions and cultivate his character. Other than Deanna and Luo Si, who he couldn't avoid, Dake didn't have much interaction with the other students. However, this student Dolong had undoubtedly obtained his favorable impression. A person who was both motivated and willing to take action was the easiest to impress. He had some expectations for Doran's growth and slowly walked down the stage. Round of 16 to 8. The winner advanced, and the loser exited. There were 4 arenas, and each arena had 2 rounds of battles. Dake followed Deanna to Arena 2 and watched her duel. The little sorcerers had limited cards, and at this stage, there wasn't much of a gap between them. Remember the URL, Vipkanshu. 6. Therefore, in the round of 16, most of the competitors were evenly matched, and very few could hide their trump cards. By observing their matches, they would be able to gain an understanding of their strength on paper. In the round of 16 to 8, Deanna encountered player 8. Players 2 and 8 enter the arena as soon as possible. Professor Shi Erfu, the head of the Night Academy, blew a whistle. Come on. Come on. After being cheered on by Luo Si, Deanna walked up to the red team's arena in high spirits. On the other side, the blue team's player was the hero's son. So white is player 8. Dake's heart skipped a beat, and he was looking forward to this match. However, Luo Si, who was beside him, couldn't help but clench his fingers and say worriedly, How could it be white? There's no loser's arena for the round of 16 to 8. Dake asked curiously, Why is there a loser's arena? Can't he just win? But, Luo Si poked his finger and said hesitantly, But isn't the hero's son very powerful? Dake said.
Maybe.
After all, he was the first year's runner-up in the Halloween event. Dake suddenly realized that he hadn't paid attention to White's progress in a long time. I wonder if he has made a new magic card? There seemed to be a lot of people paying extra attention to this match. The halo of the hero's son still existed. More than half of the people gathered outside the venue. Ai Ma Métis, who had won the previous match, and Saraswati also appeared. Beside Ai Ma, there were only two girls who often sat next to her. If you looked further, you could see Luo Boat Broheim in the crowd. Saraswati seemed to have a high reputation in the School of Magic. Most of the girls in the School of Magic Arts crowded around her. With her silver hair and brown skin, she was extremely eye-catching. Of course, the students of the Night Academy were the ones with the most numbers. Although White thought that no one cared about him anymore, the truth was that the people who should be paying attention to him were still paying attention to him. They just weren't as enthusiastic as before. When they first came into contact with him, the students would instinctively think that the hero's son must be very outstanding. But now that thought had gradually changed to that of the hero's son should have something special. Moreover, the Academy of Knights already had an exceptionally excellent representative. They placed more of their hopes on Ai Ma. They didn't care so much about White. Amidst all these thoughts, the match began. Preparation stage. Deanna tiptoed to make herself look taller, but she felt tired and gave up. The height of the table on the stage wasn't good for her, but fortunately, it didn't affect her too much. After putting the cards into the card slot according to the rules, she raised her head and looked at White across from her. She raised her hand and greeted him enthusiastically. "Hey!"
Hello.
In fact, White was still a little depressed, so he didn't respond because he was distracted. Deanna puffed up her cheeks, thinking that she had to use a little more strength later. 30s. The shuffling of cards ended and the whistle sounded. A countdown appeared above the table. The players on both sides immediately calmed down and drew their cards. Deanna looked at the Bear of Earth in her hand and smiled. "I'm in luck." The Bear of Earth was a magic elf that she refined using the basic refining method in class. Among all the discarded cards, that 2-star magic conducting card was still the one she really liked. Card name, Bear of Earth. Type, Elf card. Level, Yen. Race, Bird Beast. Attribute, Ground. Magic power, 1000. Attack, 800. Defense, 1000. Killer skills, Earth Force Bear's Fetters. Both magic power and defense had reached the top standard of a 2-star magic elf card, and its attack power was not weak either. There were 2 killer skills, which belonged to the rarer purple card. Moreover, these 2 sure kill skills were very practical. On the other side, Werther also drew 5 cards from his hand. Among them the Troll made him feel more at ease. It was a pity that he didn't get the Taboo Love, Fantasy Beast, Stag, Taboo Love, Troll, and another 3-star magic elf card were the core of his cards. During this period, he also looked for opportunities to gamble cards. Although he only gambled a few times, his luck was not bad. He dripped his blood into the number 1 refining array, and finally obtained a new 3-star card. He had not gotten his hands on it yet. Battle stage. 30s. The moment the first round began, both sides began to summon their magic elf without hesitation. White was faster than Deanna, but there was a limit to it. Deanna's magic talent was very outstanding. Although it could not be compared to the hero's bloodline, it was still outstanding. Only 2 seconds later, the starting sprites of both sides appeared one after another. This was not the first time White's troll had appeared. Its tall body was very rare among 3-star magic elves, and it was unusually eye-catching. It crushed the Little Rock Dragon's 3 dimensions panel in all aspects, making the troll extremely ferocious. Card name, Troll. Type, Elf card. Level, Yen. Race, Subhuman. Attribute, normal. Magic power, 1200. Attack, 1500. Defense, 1400. Ultimate skill, reckless tackle rage. Whether it was the panel data or the momentum of the appearance, the troll was definitely better. Smash it, troll. Once it entered the duel, White had a natural momentum. He knew that Deanna's Bear of Earth was only a 2-star card, and it could not be a match for the troll. Ow! The troll beat its chest with both hands and roared. It wasted a few seconds before charging forward. Bear of Earth, hold on. Deanna immediately gave the order, and the second magic card in her hand was ready. Bang! After a loud noise, the Bear of Earth successfully blocked the troll's 2-handed hammer cannon. Its magic power had decreased a lot because of this. However, the Earth's strength that kept surging from its feet made its magic power slowly recover a little. Then the first round ended. Deanna did not immediately draw the card, but successfully summoned the second magic card. Magic Beast, Polar Bear. Almost at the same time, Bear's Bond was triggered. A yellow halo appeared under the Bear of Earth's feet. Its magic power, attack, and defense all increased by 200 points at the same time. This made the 3 dimensions of the Bear of Earth and the troll closer. Deanna reached out and took out 2 new magic cards. It's coming. Her smile gradually bloomed. Chapter 164. Under the effect of Bear's Bond, the Earthen Bear's 3 measurements would increase by 200 points for every additional bear that established a bond with it within 100 meters. The highest number of increases was 3. Roar! The Earthen Bear used its sudden increase in strength to push the giant monster away. Then, with a giant bear charge, the giant monster staggered. The giant monster seemed to be embarrassed and angry because of this. It twisted its waist, and its thick giant hand swept across like a giant hammer. But this strike that seemed like a hot knife through butter was successfully blocked by the Earthen Bear. Earth's strength was activated. A layer of yellow light surged from its feet again, and it recovered some of the magic it had lost. It took the opportunity to retreat and defend the magic ball. Its defense has increased. White was shocked. He subconsciously took out 2 new cards from the top of the deck and added them into his hand. Then he glanced at them and was instantly relieved. Taboo Love was among them. The life enchantment of the magic conducting orb only had a mana value of 1,000 points, so the more powerful magic conducting fairies could easily shatter it with a single blow. It was also a slightly evil idea to turn the magic elf guarding the magic ball into the culprit that destroyed the magic ball. However, White didn't do that immediately. While he commanded the giant monster to continue attacking, he summoned his second magic elf. That wasn't Magic Beast, Stag, but a new 2-star magic elf. Card name, Goblin Warrior. Type, elf card. Level, race, demi-human. Attribute, fighting. Magic power, 300. Attack, 500. Defense, 300. Ultimate skill, Goblin Whirlwind. It had long ears and a pointy nose, and it looked like an ugly demi-human. It had a simple shield on its left arm, and a rusty short knife in its right hand. The Goblin Warrior turned into a solid body in the light. Then, it smirked and rushed towards Deanna's Magic Beast. As a 1-star magic elf, the Magic Beast's stats weren't high. Even though the Goblin Warrior wasn't very strong, it was more than enough to deal with the polar bear. White glanced at her hand. In the remaining 5 cards, apart from Taboo Love and Magic Bullet Incantation, they were all white cards that were inferior to the Goblin Warriors. Originally, such a card shouldn't have appeared in the deck. But in a situation where there were no other magic cards to replace them, using them to fill the deck was a very helpless choice. Goblin Whirlwind. Seeing that the Goblin Warrior was already in front of the white bear with his sword, Werther immediately gave the order. Jeje. The Goblin Warrior responded to its master's command. A white light surged out from its hand and climbed onto the blade. As it ran, it twisted its waist, and its entire body, along with the blade, rotated more than 180 degrees. It was an astonishing horizontal slash. To dodge. However, the polar bear chose to avoid the attack. According to Deanna's strategy, the polar bear, who was in charge of defense, turned around and grabbed the magic ball, running with it. The goblin warrior's attack missed. He was so angry that he stomped his feet and chased after the polar bear. In a situation where the first-year students hadn't learned how to use magic to control the magic ball from a distance, running with the ball was a very common strategy. To counter this strategy, the easiest way was to summon another magic elf and form a pincer attack. White prepared to summon the third magic elf immediately after the cooldown of the usual summoning spell was over. Even if the third magic elf was useless, it could still be used to block the polar bear. Overall, his thinking was very clear. If he went step by step, he would have a great advantage. Deanna from the aristocrat house didn't seem to be as strong as he thought. Just as this thought flashed through his mind, White suddenly noticed that Deanna was unusually excited as she raised the magic card in her hand. Under the gazes of many people, the magic card emitted an extremely dazzling light. The strength of the bear. Deanna's loud shout resounded through the entire arena. On the field, facing the troll's attack, the bear of earth was barely able to resist. Its eyes suddenly changed, and its body was covered by a layer of extremely bright light. It then let out an excited roar, and strength surged from its limbs and bones. Visible to the naked eye, the outline of muscles appeared on the bear of earth's body, and its body suddenly swelled up by one size. Although it was still not as big as the troll, it was already close to 3 meters tall. Roar. In the roar, the bear of earth finally vented out the humiliation of being suppressed for the entire round. It ran 2 steps, and like a heavy armored tank, it fiercely slammed into the troll's abdomen. Bang! The arrogant troll was actually sent flying. The entire arena was in an uproar. The aristocrat house students had already seen the strength of the bear. But the night house students saw it for the first time. Luo Boat couldn't help but worry outside the arena. But when he remembered that White still had forbidden love, he was relieved. If the bear of earth only relied on brute force, it wouldn't be a threat to White. In my opinion, White just wanted to try to win the battle head-on, and that's why he dragged the battle until now. Otherwise, Deanna would have been defeated long ago. He talked endlessly in the crowd, but it seemed like he was being ignored. The bear of earth's sudden outburst made White's face turn stiff. He subconsciously stopped the normal summoning spell that he was chanting halfway, and unconsciously took out forbidden love. No, it's not over yet. White suddenly realized that there was something wrong with his mentality. He quickly stabilized his mind and roared, "Troll, sacrificial tackle!" Sacrificial tackle was an extremely powerful sure-kill skill. It could reduce one's magic power by half to inflict heavy damage to the enemy. Although the troll lost some magic power due to the bear of earth's attack, it still had more than half of its magic power left. After receiving the order, the troll's eyes turned red, and its originally ferocious aura suddenly became even more ferocious. It steadied its body slightly, then immediately moved its thick legs and rushed toward the bear of earth. In the process of rushing, an extremely strong bloody light burst out from its body, as if it was a peerless ferocious beast, frightening everyone. But on the other side of the contestant stage, Deanna was getting more and more excited. Her innate talent for combat filled her with a thirst for battle, and the magic guiding fairies she had refined were all warlike. Don't retreat, defeat it head-on. The white light on the bear of earth's body became stronger and stronger. Bear's strength gave it an extra attack of star level X 300, which increased its attack power to a terrifying 1600. This had obviously surpassed the top level of a 3-star magic elven. Coupled with the explosive power of a bear, its aura was ferocious. The troll and the bear of earth, 2 gigantic magic elves, violently collided. It was like 2 heavy trucks colliding. A strong wind burst out from the point of contact. Almost all the students subconsciously held their breaths and stared. Roar! Roar! The bear of Earth's strength overwhelmed the troll. However, the troll's desperate charge also broke the bear of Earth's defense, causing great damage to the bear of Earth. The magic power of both magic elves dropped to the freezing point at the same time. The third round, draw a card. The aura of both sides was completely different from before the duel. Deanna quickly drew a card, then excitedly raised one of the magic elves and continued to summon. White pulled out a magic elven card that she just drew with a serious expression, and summoned it faster than Deanna. Magic elven summon, Luminous Python. A snow-white python that was not inferior to the troll in size appeared in the white light. Card name, Luminous Python. Type, Elf card. Level, *****. Race, Reptile. Attribute, Light. Magic power, 1400. Attack, 1400. Defense, 1400. Ultimate skill, Sacred Light. It's coming, it's coming. Luo Boat's excited shouts were unusually eye-catching. But at this moment no one cared about his embarrassment. This was the first time White summoned his new trump card in public. The Luminous Python had 1400 magic attack and defense, and its bucket-like waist made it almost have no weaknesses. Its delicate snake scales reflected a clear white light under the illumination of the room's lights. Its head was inlaid with snow-white gems, and its eyes did not have the cold-blooded cruelty of reptiles. Instead, it had a kind of gentleness. Compared to the troll, it was the polar opposite. It was beautiful and sacred. People could not help but think of the moon goddess statue before it opened its eyes. Dake squinted slightly. This was the magic elven that matched the identity of the hero. But the outcome was still uncertain. Only 2 or 3 seconds later, Deanna also summoned her third magic elven pet. Walking out of the light was the spirit of the giant bear, which seemed to be the embodiment of light. The giant bear was 3 meters tall with 4 limbs on the ground, and its eyes were deep and kind. It seemed to be old, and was different from the rest of Deanna's battle pets. The battle intent of youth had faded, and what was left was the understanding of the vicissitudes of life. This was the embodiment of the bear's will. It was the spirit of all bears. Card name, Spirit Bear. Type, Elven card. Level, *****. Race, Undying species. Attribute, Light. Magic power, 1400. Attack, 1700. Defense, 0. Ultimate skill, Spirit Bear Summon. As the embodiment of light energy, the Spirit Bear had almost no defense, but it had a strong immunity to pure physical attacks. At the cost of this, it could break through the limit of 3-star attacks. The only ultimate skill seemed to be hiding a mysterious and great power. It was also the first time Deanna summoned her only 3-star magic elven pet in public. Among the large number of useless cards, only this Spirit Bear was a surprise that exceeded expectations. The Luminous Python and the Spirit Bear replaced the Troll and the Earth Bear, and became the focus of attention. At the same time, Bear's bond was triggered. The Earth Bear's magic attack and defense increased by 200 points again. Attack, 1800. Defense, 1400. When everyone's attention was attracted by the 2 new magic guide fairies that had just appeared, the Earth Bear gained an overwhelming advantage in the last confrontation with the Troll. The Troll that Victor was so proud of was sent away by the Earthen Bear, without using the Berserk Surekill skill. However, from the blind spot of the Earth Bear, a dagger suddenly appeared and pierced through the Earth Bear waist. From the side, the Goblin Warrior revealed a ferocious smile. The Earth Bear's magic power was reduced to 0. Sacred Light. White raised the Luminous Python magic card to the highest point. The Luminous Python's body and the magic card emitted a sacred white light at the same time. It was like the light of the soul, a light skill that covered a large area without any blind spots. The Goblin Warrior's ferocious smile was covered by the light. The Fantasy Beast, Polar Bear. that was exposed to the sacred light melted like water. The magic power of the spirit bear, that was on the opposite side, was also decreasing. The undying species with zero defense could not withstand the damage of the sacred light at all. However, at the critical moment, Diana immediately activated the ultimate skill of the spirit bear. Spirit bear summoning. The old spirit bear was still calm even under the illumination of the sacred light. The light that formed its body clashed with the sacred light. Finally, a ray of white light broke through the seal. The ray of white light drew a circle beside it, and a pure white flower bloomed from the center of the circle. A new spirit emerged from the summoning formation. They looked at each other. White's expression changed greatly. The newly summoned spirit bear was the earth bear that was killed by the goblin warrior's sneak attack. Card name, Earth Bear. Type, Spirit Bear. Level, XXX. Race, Undying Species. Attribute, Light. Magic Power, 1000. Attack, 800. Defense, 0. Ultimate Skill, None. White did not know that the revived Earth Bear had become a white card with 0 defense. As the sacred light faded, the spirit bear was still alive. Coupled with the Earth Bear that was reborn from the dead, the pressure multiplied. White unknowingly placed his hand on Taboo Love. Again. Whenever he was in trouble, he would think of it immediately. In the arena, the goblin warrior was killed by the Earth Bear that chased after it with 2 slaps. The spirit bear was wrestling with the radiant python. Even the most gentle creature had a ferocious side. The 2 light elves rolled, fought, and tied each other up. It was extremely intense. However, physical attacks had no effect on the light elemental spirit bear. The radiant python's defense was strong enough. Although the magic power of both sides was decreasing, it was very slow. The Earth Bear that successfully killed the goblin warrior joined the battle without hesitation. The spirit bear's magic power was insufficient. The Earth Bear held the radiant python back and became a reliable frontline. The spirit bear was finally able to use its 1,700 points of attack power. Every time it waved its paw, a portion of its magic power would be used. The radiant python was defeated by the 2 righteous elves. Werther's heart was filled with urgency. He looked around and quickly looked for the red magic ball. Finally, he found the magic ball behind the spirit bear. "I didn't want to," he muttered something under his breath. White raised, Taboo Love. After a few seconds, the summoning was successful. The fog released from Taboo Love floated into the arena and went into the spirit bear's body. The spirit bear paused abruptly. Then, its expression became evil and heartsuit appeared in its eyes. The spirit bear was attracted by Taboo Love, and was controlled by White in a single round. Roar. The spirit bear suddenly roared and turned around to slap the magic ball. With its high attack power, this slap was enough to shatter the life enchantment. However, the spirit bear did not do as White wished. The bear's paw that was raised high did not fall down. How can the bond between me and the spirit bear be severed by a mere charm? Diana's declaration crushed White's heart. 2-in-1 4,300 words. Chapter 165. Bang! White slammed his palm on the table. His face twisted as if he had seen a ghost. Forbidden Love's core ability was indeed brainwashing, but with the magic fairy's intelligence level of less than 3, it was impossible for it to get rid of the brainwashing control on its own, unless the corresponding curse removal card was used. However, Diana did not activate any magic card at all. Just because of a lie. How is this possible? White could not understand this phenomenon at all. His fingers holding the magic card tightened unconsciously. No matter what, Forbidden Love had lost its effect. After the Radiant Python's ultimate skill went into cooldown, it was difficult for it to cause any damage to the 2 magic fairies. After just 1 round, the originally favorable situation had been completely ruined. First website. https:// Vipkanchu. White's palms were sweating. What should he do next? White was not the only one who was surprised. Professor Shi Erfu's surprise was no less than White's. As a professor of the Academy of Knights, she was more concerned about White. At the same time, she was very clear about the effects of forbidden love. She can rely on the bond with the magic fairy to forcefully remove the brainwashing. I didn't expect Diana to have such a strong spirit magista qualification. No wonder Pawa likes her so much. They are practically carved from the same mold. I really didn't expect this. Dake opened his mouth to express his surprise. He had taught Diana almost single-handedly, but now she had clearly exceeded his expectations. He was still thinking of establishing a bond with the magical elf through the method of affection after a long time, after refining Zhu. He did not expect Diana to have already established a bond with his spirit bear. So it is true that the purer the soul, the easier it is to establish a bond with the magic fairy? Dake could not help but think of Professor Claire's teachings these days. Before Professor Claire developed the Zhu, she had established a bond with her own magic elf. Her soul was very pure at that time, and deep in her heart was a pure love for the magic fairy. She was not too utilitarian. He didn't know much about mind summoning either. Just like Diana at this moment, she had only heard of it. Maybe Diana is more suitable than me to be the inheritor of the beast sage? Of course, sometimes the most suitable one was not necessarily the best. Dake continued to watch the match. At this time, the duel had already progressed to the 4th round. But both sides didn't have many card sets left. Victor, on the other hand, only had one magic card left. He knew very well what the last magic card was, so much so that he didn't even have the desire to draw it. It was his illusory beast. The first magic guide sprite of the Little Magisters. He really liked that stag, but it was a pity that it was only a 1-star fantasy beast. Stag. Stats were too low. When there was no need to sacrifice a high-star magical guiding spirit to summon, the 1-star magical beast, Stag, was no different from those useless cards. That was what he thought. That was why he didn't take out magical beast, Stag, in the end. The battle is over. Winner, Diana Gratbeer. White didn't use any more magic cards. In the end, he couldn't block the spirit bear's attack. The life enchantment of the magic ball that represented his health was completely shattered. End stage. White supported himself with both hands on the card table. It was as if he had gone through a life and death battle. He was completely exhausted. In the first intraclass competition, he lost to AI Ma. In the second intraclass competition, he couldn't even cross the threshold of Diana. Was it because he didn't improve? That didn't seem to be the case. It was just that the other students improved faster than him. So, what should he do next? Hey God! Diana's voice came from afar. White raised his head reluctantly. Diana blinked her big eyes and asked curiously, "What's your last magic card? Why didn't you take it out?" White glanced at the last magic card in the card slot. He took it out and put it back into the card bag. He then said casually, "Nothing, a useless card." Then he turned around and left the contestant stage. His back view looked very lonely. The students who were watching the battle probably didn't expect White to be stopped in the round of 16. Many people were surprised. However, they had to admit that Diana was really strong. The students from the Aristocrats Academy were the happiest. The morale of the Knights Academy was obviously suppressed. Sarah from the Magic Academy whispered to her friends. She pointed at White and Diana from time to time. Ai Ma from the Knights Academy just sighed. She played with the winged gold coin in her hand and left. Only Luo Boat was left waiting for White. "White, don't be discouraged." Luo Boat quickly hugged White's shoulder and comforted him. Diana's magic card must have been made by Dake. Besides, we've already made up for some of our homework, haven't we? When we master more knowledge, we'll definitely be able to make more powerful magic fairies. White took a deep breath and forced a smile. Ah, you're right. We still have to go to the detention room tonight. On the other side, Deanna, who had left the contestant stage, bounced to Dake and Luosi and showed off. What do you think? My little bear. Dake said sincerely. That's really awesome. Deanna. Hey hey hey. Luosi quickly reminded her. Don't be so proud. You have to replenish the magic power of the magic card as soon as possible. Deanna suddenly pouted. Okay. With the end of the round of 16, all 8 contestants finally made it to the next round. The next round would be a double elimination round. Every contestant would have 2 chances to advance. However, the game didn't start immediately. The 8 contestants either rested or replenished their magic power. They were all waiting for the next round. Half an hour later, all the contestants gathered together. Professor Cheong-si gave a summary and speech, and then the new schedule was announced. Dake looked at the schedule. My opponent is... No. Deanna said excitedly. I'm Nogue. Luosi counted with his fingers. No, should be Saraswati from the School of Magic. No, should be the School of Fools. Deanna's luck is not bad. In other words, Dake's luck wasn't good. Saraswati. Dake felt that someone was looking at him, so he turned around and saw Sarah, who was already observing him. She was worthy of being the top student in the first year of the School of Magic. Although she was physically weak, her complexion looked quite healthy. Her white hair was tied up in front of her chest. Her eyes were lighter than her skin color, her nose was high, and her lips were slightly plump, which made her look more attractive. Dake showed a polite smile and nodded to her. Although they hadn't spoken a word since the beginning of the semester, they actually saw each other almost every day. They were both regulars of the library. Without a doubt, she was a strong opponent, begging for a monthly ticket. Chapter 166. Beep. Under the urging of the whistle, Dake and Deanna encouraged each other and separated. The other 8 contestants also arrived at their respective venues according to the schedule. Venue 1. Number 1 versus Number 9 Venue 2. Number 2 versus Number 9 Venue 3. Number 5 versus Number 9 Venue 4. Number 7 versus Number 9. The duel between Dake and Sarah attracted more attention. More than half of the students chose to watch the duel in Venue 1. Even White, who was defeated by Deanna, couldn't help but appear in the crowd with Luo Boat. He remembered the URL, Vipkanshu. 6. He was deeply afraid of the reality that he was gradually disappearing from the crowd. His subconscious behavior was to catch the highlights of the outstanding contestants. Contestant number 1 Dake Dimming and number 9 Saraswati. I don't think I need to introduce them too much. Contestants, please enter the contestant stands. Professor Cheong-si's voice was still as loud and energetic as ever. Dake and Sarah entered the contestant stands. Saraswati didn't start the card table until she was on the stage. She said from afar, "Hello." Dake put his hand on the card table and replied with magic power, "Hello." He felt like he had to force himself to call her even though she was right in front of him. Sarah squinted her eyes and smiled. The semester is almost over. This is the first time we're talking, right? Dake nodded slightly. But it's not the first time we're talking. Sarah paused for a moment and then smiled. You're really good at talking. I should have known you earlier. Dake put the cards into the slot on the card table. It's not too late now. Sarah's expression gradually became serious. Let's get to know each other in the duel. Preparation stage. Dake and Sarah's remote communication added a lot of color to the match. The School of Magic was not like the House of Fools, which always stood aloof from worldly affairs. However, because the classes were held at different times from the School of Knights and the School of Nobles, there was no competition. Moreover, most of the students wished that they had 25 hours in a day. The rich collection of Shangmalian books attracted them all the time. For this reason, The relationship between the Academy of Magic Devices and the Academy of Nobles was not as sharp as the relationship between the Academy of Knights and the Academy of Nobles. It was only at this moment, when the top students of both academies stood on the dueling ground at the same time, that the sparks could not be suppressed and burst forth. Even Swati wouldn't be Diamond's match. None of you have ever fought with him, so you won't understand how powerless you are to be his opponent. Dolong shrugged his shoulders, further emphasizing his position. Sarah's fans, who were less than 2 meters away from his circle, glared at him fiercely. One of the girls, who had black hair and bright eyes, had her hair tied into 2 thick braids that hung down to her chest. She was particularly imposing. Boys always don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Sarah will teach you how to behave. Doran held his head high. My upbringing doesn't allow me to say harsh words, but you have to know that this era is still supported by men. Heidi. That's going to be a thing of the past. Doran. Ridiculous. The two of them stuck to their own words and gradually went off topic. However, the duel on the field would not stop because of them. 30s. The moment the automatic shuffling ended, the countdown for the preparation stage began. The players on both sides had already switched their states and were fully immersed in the duel. Dake quickly took out 5 cards from the top of the deck. Kettle. Trash Slime. Diru Beast. Reveal Powder. Pride Eye. Has the sacrifice for the summoning ritual been formed? Dake quickly estimated the possibility of summoning a Diru Beast in the first round. Then he looked at Kettle. If there was a pot, then there was a pot. If there was no pot, then there was E. Without a doubt, this was the best solution for Dake's deck. As the 30 seconds countdown for the preparation stage reached 0, the table would emit a reminder that the clock had reached 0. Experienced duelists were especially sensitive to this sound. They relied on this sound to instantly confirm the start of each round. 30s. Battle stage. The atmosphere on the field suddenly changed. Magic summoning. Dark took out Kettle from his hand and summoned it at an extremely fast speed. It had been less than an hour since the last duel. Most people still had the image of Kettle punching the little rock dragon's head in their minds. At this time, they would no longer underestimate this 0-attack 3-star magic elf card. Right after Dake, Sarah also completed her summoning. What appeared in the blue side summoning area was a black cat about the size of Kettle. The black cat's ears were huge and there was not a single strand of hair on its body. There was an indescribable strangeness in its golden eyes. Card name, Sphinx Cat. Type, Elf card. Level, Race, Bird/Beast. Attribute, Dark. Magic, 600. Attack, 600. Defense, 600. Ultimate skill, Shadow Stomp. According to legends, the Sphinx Cat was a cat that was reborn from the underworld. Their ugly and almost deformed appearance made the ancient people's evaluation of them untrue. However, as time passed, the rumors turned into legends and the Sphinx Cat became a symbol of misfortune. In the last century, witches and witches were very fond of the Sphinx Cat. They believed that the Sphinx Cat could attract misfortune and reduce the side effects of prophecies. Sarah's Sphinx Cat was not the result of a gambling card. She also rarely used gambling cards. The Shangmalian Traveler Street had extremely rare materials that were difficult to buy even in the outside world's black market. Relying on the refining method passed down from the ancient sages, Sarah finally succeeded in refining this 2-star magic elf card after Halloween. Although she was not particularly satisfied with the blue quality, she still liked it very much. Knowledgeable people would not judge things based on appearance. Sphinx Cat was undoubtedly one of Sarah's core battle tactics. However, before this, she had never summoned it in public. Because she was facing Dake Dimming, she did not hesitate to use her trump card. Although Kettle Cat was summoned faster than the Sphinx Cat, the Sphinx Cat's mobility was much higher than Kettle Cat's. When it landed on the ground, it gathered strength in its 4 limbs and suddenly bounced up. The whole cat turned into a black arrow and rushed into the opponent's field like the wind. Although Dake maintained a trace of vigilance, due to his trust in Kettle Cat, he waited for the cooldown to end and immediately began to summon the trash slime. With a 3-star Kettle Cat and a 1-star trash slime as the sacrifice, he could summon a 4-star Diru Beast. As long as the Diru Beast appeared, it would crush the opponent. However, the black furless cat did not attack Kettle Cat. Instead, when Dake successfully summoned the trash slime, it stepped on Kettle Cat's shadow. Its golden eyes emitted a bright light. Shadow Stomp. Activate. Chapter 167. Huhu's shadow was nailed to the ground all of a sudden. Bzzz. A strange feeling that it had never felt before spread from the shadow to its entire body. Huhu, whose intelligence level had already exceeded 3.0, clearly showed a panicked expression as it struggled with all its might. However, wave-like ripples appeared on the surface of its tentacles. Its entire outline was completely nailed to the ground and it could not move. "I've stepped on it." Sarah, who was on the blue team's platform, could not help but reveal a smile. Anyone who had seen the duel between Dake and Doran would understand the value of this Huhu card. It must have a core position in Dake's deck. Sarah was in the middle of a duel at that time, but after the duel, she obtained the relevant information from her fans. Remember this in 1 second. https://m Vipkanshu. VIP collecting information on competitors. This was a very natural thing for people whose goal was to win the championship. Sarah had done a very good job of that. After careful analysis, she felt that the value of Huhu was not only limited to its single card strength, but also because it was the only 3-star magic guide spirit that Dake had taken out so far. 3 stars plus 1 star equals 4 stars if she wanted to summon the 4-star magic guide spirit that had appeared previously. Diru Beast. The existence of Huhu was very crucial. In other words, as long as Huhu was completely sealed, more than half of Dake's deck would be crippled. And Sphinx Cat was a magic guide spirit card that was specially used for sealing. Its sure kill skill, Shadow Stomp, could completely nail a magic guide spirit to death. Regardless of whether it was moving, summoning, or even sacrificing, all actions that wanted to change its coordinates would be prohibited. Course. As a 2-star magic guide spirit card, the flaws of Sphinx Cat were very obvious. When it maintained Shadow Stomp, it had to continuously inject magic power and could not move. The stronger the struggle of the prey that was stepped on, the more magic power it would need to consume. And the magic power of Sphinx Cat was only 600. Therefore, before Sphinx Cat's magic power was exhausted or it was forced to lift its leg, it had to end the battle quickly. Sarah calculated the speed of magic power consumption and judged that she only had less than 2 rounds left. However, duelists were in a race against time. 2 rounds were more than enough. She glanced at the trash slime that Dake had summoned and she couldn't help but grin. This should be a 1-star magical guide spirit. Coupled with a 3-star Kettle. Is it trying to quickly summon a 4-star card? As expected, he still hasn't realized that I've locked Kettle. Magical summoning. Blue team's summoning area. Another magic guide spirit belonging to Sarah was summoned. She had a well-defined face, a graceful body, and strong limbs. It was a black hound with golden patterns on its body. Card name, Anubis. Type, elf card. Level, 00. Race, bird. Attribute, dark, magic power, 900 attack, 900 defense, 900 ultimate skill, shadow hunt. Similar to the Sphinx, the Anubis was often mistaken for the Grim Reaper's pet due to its elegant posture and habit of lurking in the shadows. But in fact, they were just a dog breed named by humans. They were usually friendly, smart, vigilant, and loyal. They were experts at hunting rabbits. They were loved by both hunters and assassins. Lurking in the shadows, hunting for death. When the aura of death shrouded the trash slime, Dake's sacrificial summoning was already halfway through. With Trash Slime and Kettle Kettle as sacrifices, sacrificial summoning, Diru Beast. The Trash Slime was wriggling on the ground like a puddle of water. Kettle Kettle's shadow was stepped on by the Sphinx. The two magical guide spirits emitted white light under the sacrificial summoning. Strands of light converged between the two. The Trash Slime's body was pulled into threads in an instant. The outline of Kettle Kettle's body also showed obvious signs of stretching forward. But the Sphinx's golden eyes suddenly emitted a golden light, suppressing its body that was about to turn into light. Dake's sacrificial summoning came to an abrupt end. His expression changed slightly. He was used to the simple tactics of the little mages. He didn't expect that someone would have the technique to stop the sacrificial summoning. Why did Dake's sacrificial summoning get interrupted? Outside the arena, Doran had originally thought that the Diru Beast would appear again. He had originally looked at Heidi with a mocking expression, but now he couldn't help but cry out in surprise. The thick braid girl crossed her arms and sneered. "This is Swati, the pride of our magic academy." Tension and joy. The two different atmospheres quickly spread between the two academies. This is bad. The first-year students of the Noble Academy could more or less see the crux of this duel, and they couldn't help but worry. Most of the students of the Knight Academy and the Fool Academy were confused. "What happened just now?" Luo Boat asked with a puzzled expression. The changes in the arena were beyond his knowledge. Werther was slightly hesitant as he guessed. Maybe the black cat did something to him? Dake's sacrificial summoning failed. Luo Boat had a surprised expression. Sacrificial summoning can be stopped? Then isn't Dake's situation very bad? White's expression was rather grave. "It's like this. Not only did he waste the time to cast the sacrificial summoning spell, but the slime didn't look like it could fight against the Swati hound. Once the slime as one of the sacrificial offerings was destroyed, it would be difficult for him to have a second sacrificial opportunity." Luo Boat's face paled. So Swati of the Magic Academy is actually this powerful. In reality, Dake's Trash Slime was even weaker than everyone had imagined. The Trash Slime with 0 attack and defense only had a sure kill skill, strengthened stomach acid, which was used to aid digestion. Against the extremely fast vicious hound, the Trash Slime, which was not much slower than Kettle, didn't have the slightest ability to resist. The Anubis shadow suddenly elongated, and its body suddenly followed the shadow, its sharp claws tearing apart the Trash Slime's body in an instant. Drip! The start of the second round passed in that instant. Dake suppressed his nervousness and calmly added 2 new magic guide cards from the top of the deck into his hand. In his half, Kettle was controlled, and the Trash Slime was torn apart. There was no longer any magic guide fairy that could stop the Anubis. The magic guide ball floating in the air was like a young lady exposed in front of a pervert. There was no longer any trace of safety to speak of. "Anubis, tear it apart." Saraswati's high-pitched voice rang out. "Woof!" The Anubis responded to the command and lowered its body as if it was hunting. Its sharp fangs were exposed from its open mouth, and saliva dripped from the corner of its mouth. The moment Shadow Hunt entered cooldown, it exerted strength in its hind legs, moving from stillness to movement, and leaped up. The transmission of muscle power was clearly visible. The Anubis sped past the red magic guide ball, raising its sharp claws and leaving 3 claw marks on the life barrier. The magic guide ball's HP plummeted. 1000108. Outside the arena, the atmosphere in the noble house was extremely tense. Doran and a few others looked even more nervous than Dake himself. Saraswati had actually forced Dake into a desperate situation with only 2 2-star magic guide fairies. The Anubis's vigorous body landed lightly. Its amber eyes turned to the damaged magic guide ball behind it, and then it slowly turned around. Saraswati still took out 2 new magic guide cards from the top of the deck. However, she did not look at them. Instead, she declared in a high-spirited manner, "It's over, Dimming. Your life is already like a candle in the wind. Just as she finished speaking, the Anubis, who had adjusted its breathing, had already launched a second attack on the red magic guide ball. Swoosh! The magic guide ball suddenly split into two. The Anubis's leaping body passed through the middle and suddenly landed on the ground. It suddenly turned around and barked. Woof! A woo! Futile resistance is meaningless, Anubis. Sarah stood on the contestant platform and clearly saw the changes in the field. A cute fox-like fairy suddenly appeared. When the Anubis was about to pounce, it used its hind leg to kick the magic guide ball away. At the same time, it used the force to bounce away, creating the illusion that it had split into two. The red magic guide ball's HP also dropped to a freezing point under this kick. 10813, who had landed again, suddenly growled at the Anubis. Sarah remembered that this petite magic guide fairy should be Dake's fantasy beast. It was a 1-star fairy with 100 magic attack and defense. A mere fantasy beast could not pose a threat to the 2-star Anubis. However, in the previous duel, Dake seemed to have used some kind of magic card to strengthen it. The moment her thoughts turned rapidly, Sarah pulled out a magic guide fairy card from her new hand. The Anubis, on the other hand, received the order and directly pounced on Ivan this time. The red magic guide ball that had flown out bounced up after touching the buffer field at the edge of the field. It gradually lost its momentum and hovered in the air. To Sarah, this was both bad and good news. The bad news was that the Anubis could not jump so high. The shadow hunt that allowed it to pounce at high altitudes was still in cooldown. The good news was that the opponent's magic guide fairy could not touch the magic guide ball. The magic guide fairy that she was about to summon was a Bennu bird. It was also her initial magic guide fairy, the fantasy beast. It had a long beak and a grayish-white heron, wearing a double-feathered crown. As long as she summoned the fantasy beast, Bennu bird, the situation on the field was no longer important to her. With only 13 magic points left, the barrier of life could not withstand any of the Bennu bird's attacks. Card name, Fantasy Beast, Bennu bird. Type, Fairy card. Level, Race, Undying. Attribute, Dark. Magic power, 100. Attack, 100. Defense, 100. Ultimate skill, Soul Attraction. Dake's summoning speed was unprecedentedly fast. He felt that he seemed to have broken through some bottlenecks of the 4-second summoning in this pressing battle rhythm. 2 new magic guide cards. One was his initial magic guide fairy, Fantasy Beast, Ibu. The other was Pride 2. Although the magic guide ball's barrier of life was so thin that it could not be seen, the charm of a duel lay in its infinite possibilities. Until the last moment, the outcome was still unknown. He was in a wonderful state. He was nervous but calm. He was calm but excited. The dopamine in his brain was secreting rapidly. No previous duel had given him such a feeling. The summoning of Pride 2 was completed in a very short period of time. Ibu responded to its master's expectations. Bathed in the dark golden light, it was promoted from 1-star to 2-star. Although its 3 attributes were still lower than the Anubis, the gap was very small. Facing the Anubis that was charging at it head-on, it dodged with more nimble movements and then counterattacked with its claws. It was done in one breath. The difference in the intelligence level of both sides was clearly shown in the close-range confrontation. Ibu's reaction speed and fluidity were higher than the Anubis. The confidence and calmness when it dodged sideways had the bearing of a master. Kettle. Dake's voice was clearly heard. Kettle stopped struggling after being pinned by Shadow Stomp. Its eyes lit up with the brilliance of its superpower. Works. You wouldn't know if you didn't try. The Sphinx's Shadow Stomp couldn't stop this kind of skill from being released. Beep. Suddenly a clear bird's cry came from the sky. The heron-like Bennu bird was summoned. Dake's heart skipped a beat. But the first to react was Ibu, who was fighting with the Anubis. There was no need for him to give orders. Ibu raised its head high, and its eyes that were full of arrogance were emitting a cold, dark golden light. The aura that was at an extremely high place made the Bennu bird in the sky couldn't help but turn its head. Once the two's eyes met, the Bennu bird's heart was overwhelmed by its arrogance, and the great sense of defeat made it lose the desire to attack. The bird was full of dejection. Bennu! Sala's roar unknowingly had a hint of urgency. It was as if from the moment he said that sentence, something had started to go wrong. Suddenly, there was a burst of exclamations outside the field. Sala turned her head and revealed a hint of surprise. It was the Anubis that took advantage of the gap when Ibu raised his head to use circle pupil. It pounced from the side and bit Ibu's neck. But just as she was feeling happy, Sarah discovered, to her astonishment, that Ivan, who had been exchanging blows with the Anubis just a moment ago, had suddenly become extremely tall. It was as if there was still a remnant of the aura when he used circle pupil. No, it was a true suppression of attributes. The Anubis bit Ibu's neck with its sharp teeth, but it was as if it was biting a steel plate. It couldn't bite down no matter what. If it wasn't for Ibu's skin that wasn't hard enough, its teeth might have broken. Ivan allowed the Anubis to bite his neck. He turned his head and looked down, a trace of condescending contempt in his eyes. Squeak, squeak. Mongrel. 2 in 1, 4,000 words. Chapter 168. Magic Beast. Ivan, Pride 2. Defense, 300 plus 2,200, divided by 2 is equal to 1,250. Defense split. It was Huahu who used its superpower at the critical moment. Defense split. It added its own 2,200 points of defense to Ivan's 300 points of defense and split it equally, causing Ivan's defense value to explode from 300 points to 1,250 points in an instant. Relying on the Anubis' 900 points of attack, it was impossible to break through Ivan's defense at this moment. The Anubis attack failed and it immediately retreated. It lowered its body and let out a low growl. A trace of black gas flowed out of its eyes. URL: https://vipcanshu. Ivan's body emitted a faint white light. That was the manifestation of Huahu's superpower. It was just a few seconds of attack and defense. Dake didn't command at all. It was completely Ivan and Huahu's own judgment. Ivan gave up on defense and used circle pupil to block the final blow of the shell bird. Huahu casually threw a shield at it, blocking the Anubis' sneak attack. Everything happened in a flash. The audience didn't even have time to react before the two magic guide elves made an extremely exciting joint battle. To use a phrase that was too lame, this was an exciting operation that was enough to be recorded in textbooks. But it wasn't over yet. Ivan took advantage of the gap when the Anubis retreated. He didn't take the opportunity to counterattack. Instead, he turned around and pounced on the Sphinx cat. Huahu's ability lasted for a very short time and had a very long cooldown. When Ivan forced the Sphinx back with a claw, the superpower radiance on its body had become very faint. Meow. The Sphinx let out an extremely unwilling roar. But its magic power had actually been depleted. From the time it used Shadow Step to lock Huahu to now being forced back, it had already been 2 rounds. Damn it! Sarah clenched her teeth. She wanted to eat Ibuchan. However, she still managed to grasp the situation at an extremely fast speed. The Anubis and the Sphinx cat's ultimate skills were on cooldown. Among them, the Anubis still had combat power, but the Sphinx cat had already reached the point where it would break with a touch. On the other hand, the magic guide elves on the opposite side. Huahu regained its ability to move. Ivan was at his peak. The situation was clearly not in her favor. But she still had hope. The shell bird in the air was only affected by the eye of the circle. Once it recovered, the life enchantment of the magic conducting ball that only had 13 MP left would not be able to withstand a single strike from it. Neither EV nor EV could reach high altitudes. as long as he could hold on until that moment. Sarah calmed down a little and immediately ordered the Anubis to return to defend. From Dake's perspective, Kettle's movement speed is extremely slow, and it doesn't have any long-range attack capabilities. Ivan won't be able to take down the Anubis anytime soon. The only thing he can do now is to sacrifice and summon. But this Ivan is already a 2-star magical guiding sprite. 2 stars plus 3 stars equals 5 stars. Unless Dake still has a 5-star magic elven card in his hand, I'm still invincible. The exclamations outside the arena did not affect Sarah's train of thought. She was gradually becoming calmer. Ada. Sarah suddenly raised her head and looked at the opposite side that was 30 meters away. Dake Dimming, how are you going to break out of this situation? How to break out of this situation? While Sarah was thinking quickly, Dake was also calculating. He only had a total of 12 cards in his deck. In the preparation stage, he drew 5 cards. In the second round, he added 2 cards. That left him with 5 cards. What was the probability of drawing Bliss 3 in the third round? The answer was 2/5. 2/5 is already very high. 30's third round draw cards. Dake took out 2 new magic conducting cards from the deck and immediately checked them. Magic bullet spell. Bliss 3. I got it. A trace of obvious excitement flashed across his face. Dake suddenly raised Bliss 3, high up. This golden-pink magic conducting card, after less than 4 seconds of summoning, suddenly released an extremely strong pink glow. The Bennu bird, which was flapping its wings in the air, had just shown signs of returning to normal when it was immediately mesmerized by the pink glow. Even the Anubis froze for a moment because of this. The students outside the arena stared at the pink glow that was actually not considered dazzling. The students from the School of Magic instinctively had an ominous premonition. The students from the aristocrat house of aristocrats took it as a sign of a comeback. Only White Gouda suddenly grabbed Taboo Love in his hand. The way Dake controlled Bliss 3. It was very similar to the way he controlled Taboo Love. It was just that the glow of Bliss 3 was more intense than his pink fog. The mesmerizing effect was more domineering. The difference was, Bliss 3 was not focused on mesmerizing. Therefore, after the glow faded, the magic conducting sprite that was affected by it would quickly regain its clarity. After sensing that the Anubis eyes quickly returned to normal, White could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Still different. Of course it was different. Originally, the leap from 1 star to 2 stars was enough to shock people. But at this time, Illusionary Beast, Ivan, not only did its star level and 3 measurements increase, its card surface, its form also underwent a drastic change under the illumination of the strong pink glow. How is this possible? Sarah Swati slammed her hand on the card table. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. The audience outside the arena had already held their breaths. In an instant, silence fell over the perimeter of Venue 1. Professor Cheong-si also looked at the changes in Ivan's form in astonishment. Illusionary beasts were essentially illusory beasts that did not have fixed forms. They were illusory and unfathomable. Before they were seen by people, their forms were uncertain. They could be cats, dogs, or even dragons. Every illusionary beast that people saw could take on a completely different form. But after it was refined into a magic conducting sprite. During the process of creating the illusionary beast, the Archmage would have some understanding of it. The moment it was seen by the Archmage, it would forever be fixed in that form in the eyes of the Archmage. In Professor Cheong-si's knowledge, he had never heard of a fixed, illusionary beast being able to change again. The more he understood, the more inconceivable it was. Dake Dimming, without a doubt, broke this little bit of common sense and researched something that had never been done before. He's still in his first year. After the astonishment, he sighed in admiration. Professor Cheong-si was very gratified that this magic conducting genius came from his academy. And in the arena, under the illumination of Bliss 3, the emblem of bliss appeared on Ivan's forehead. Moonlight with a trace of pink mist was released from his forehead. His petite body rapidly changed in the light. From a height of 0.3 meters, it became 1 meter in the blink of an eye. His originally soft brown fur was quickly dyed with a layer of black. The ring pattern on his body emitted a pink glow. He was the agent of the moon that walked in the night, a charming sprite that symbolized bliss. The entire process seemed slow, but it was actually extremely fast. He raised his head, and the remaining light retracted back into his forehead. Moon Ivan enter. 4 seconds later, Dake pulled out Pride Eye by a hair's breadth. As the dark golden ball of light entered Moon Ivan's body, this defiant finally didn't run out of the arena. Shadow Ball. A pitch-black ball emitting an evil aura instantly shattered the body of the Bennu bird. The scattered feathers turned into fragments of light in the intertwining line of sight. The Anubis protecting the blue magic conducting ball showed a ferocious expression, but it could be seen from its constantly twitching hind legs. This was just a show of strength. On the platform, Sarah looked at the 6 cards in her hand, her breathing unstable. Immediately after, the Anubis was torn apart by the galloping Moon Ivan's claws. The blue magic conducting ball was caught unawares by its claws and fangs. Saraswati didn't make any more fearless struggles. 1-0-0-0-0. The battle is over. Winner, Dake Dimming. Boom! The sound returned in an instant. The Noble Academy students outside the arena suddenly shouted, rushing to the red platform as if they were welcoming a hero. Even though there were still some elements that they didn't understand, this duel was without a doubt the most intense and exciting duel in this competition. It was as if they were welcoming a champion. End stage. Dake Dimming. Sarah's clear voice was transmitted through the speakers of the card table. Dake turned over the illusory beast, Ivan magic conducting card, to receive the light from Moon Ivan. At the same time, he raised his head to respond. Sarah bit her lower lip hard, suppressing the unwillingness in her heart. She opened her eyes wide and said, "It's not over yet." Dake nodded slightly. "I'll wait for you in the finals." When he walked down from the platform, Dake was surrounded by his classmates. "Dake, you're really something. As expected of the Crimson Star winner, you're different from a certain hero. At first, I thought you were going to lose. Is this the charm of a duel? You're amazing." There were simple and unpretentious praises, as well as meaningless insults and flattery. The Noble Academy students expressed their emotions to their heart's content. Dake was in the center of the crowd, facing the enthusiasm of his classmates. He could only decline. "No, I'm just lucky. Everything is a 2/5 decision." When the students calmed down, the 4 rounds of the competition had already ended. The 8 contestants were divided into the winners group and the losers group. Winners group, 1, 2, 5, 6, losers group, 9, 9, 9. 7. Anna successfully defeated a student from the House of Fools. AI Ma also won a duel with a boy from the School of Magic. However, another student from the School of Knights lost to the 9 from the House of Fools. The next round would be a knockout round for the losers group, where 2 out of 4 contestants would be chosen. The winners group would continue with the competition, where 2 out of 4 contestants would be chosen. The 2 people from the winners group would fall to the losers group and duel with the 2 surviving people from the losers group, and so on and so forth. During the break in the competition, Dake sat on a bench at the edge of the room and organized his cards. In fact, his card deck had a lot of flaws. The most fatal one was the extremely long cooldown of the Great Sin series of cards. Pride's cooldown was 59 minutes. Pride 2's cooldown was even more exaggerated at 180 minutes. Bliss 3's cooldown was slightly better, at 120 minutes. Even though there would be a gap of half an hour between each round of the winners group. However, from the quarterfinals to the finals, there were only 4 intervals, a total of 120 minutes. This meant that Pride 2 could no longer go on stage. Pride I could go on stage after 2 intervals. Bliss 3 could only go on stage in the finals. Therefore he had to make some adjustments to his card deck. The duel with Sokka Scatty had also given him a great wake-up call. He wasn't the only one among the first years who was making big strides forward. The others were also advancing rapidly. Before the next round of the competition began, Dake finally completed the adjustments to his card deck. First of all, he had to take all 6 magic elf cards. Secondly, he had to replace some useless cards and add some support cards. The final result was Magic Beast, Ibu, Trash Slime, Kettle, Diru Beast, Milk Jar, Fairy Ibu, Push Spell, Obstruction Spell, Obstruction Spell, Magic Bullet Spell, Fading Spell, Flicker Spell. It was still 12 magic cards. The ratio of Magic Elf to other types of magic cards was 1:1. Although this set of cards didn't seem that reliable, this was already the best adjustment Dake could make. He put away the adjusted cards and then got up to walk to the bulletin board where the next stage of the competition was posted. The students surrounded the bulletin board and discussed in low voices. When they saw the top 8 contestants coming, they consciously made way for them. Dake greeted 2 enthusiastic students and then came behind Deanna, who was looking up with a troubled face. "What's wrong?" Dake asked casually. Luo Si turned around and blinked at him. Deanna turned her head and said sadly, "I'm not happy. I'm going to lose." Dake looked up at the schedule. Didn't they just announce the schedule? Why are we going to lose? Ugh. The first line of the winner's bracket was written. 1 versus 2. Winner's bracket sad face 1, field. 1 versus 2, 2 field. 5 versus 7, loser's bracket sad face 3, field. 9 versus 4, field. 7 versus 8. So my next opponent is you? Dake led Deanna out of the crowd. Deanna frowned and said in a low voice, "I thought I could at least fight with you in the semi-finals." Dake comforted her. "It's not good to underestimate yourself. You have to believe in your own magic cards. Even I don't have the confidence to win." Deanna said, "But I don't even have a second-tier magic elf card." Dake said, "A magic duel is not about whose magic elf star level is higher. I almost lost to Saraswati when I was dueling with her. Your card set is very powerful. You are a strong opponent that I have to be careful of." Deanna said, "A strong opponent? Then I'll go all out." Dake said, "Okay, a strong opponent." 2 in 1:4200 words. It was time to fight. Chapter 169. Beep beep beep. Dake, who finally got Deanna's energy back, walked up to the red team's platform under the urging of Professor Cheong Si's whistle. He put the readjusted deck into the card slot and glanced down a little. The students gathered on both sides of the arena were mostly from the Aristocrats Academy. He and Deanna were both representatives of the Aristocrats Academy. Unfortunately, they entered the civil war in the first round of the winners group. However, whether it was a civil war or a foreign war, it did not affect him much. Preparation stage. "I'm going to draw a card." Deanna's voice came through the loudspeaker. She was full of energy. Dake nodded slightly and replied, "Ready. 30s. Remember the website, VIP can't you? VIP. The atmosphere between the two sides entered a state of battle. Dake immediately focused. He did not lie to comfort Deanna because Deanna's card deck was indeed very strong. Whether it was the Bear of Earth or the Spirit Bear, they were very versatile magic elf cards. Moreover, she also had the strength of the bear. Since there were not many cards in the deck, the probability of drawing these key cards was very high. If he was not careful, Dake might suffer a crushing defeat. After calming himself down, Dake reached out and drew 5 cards from the shuffled deck at a very fast speed. Push spell. Block spell. Block spell. Magic bullet spell. Flash spell. Pft. How can I play without a elf in my starting hand? Waiting online urgent. Dake's face fell instantly. They were 30 meters apart. Diana could not see Dake's face clearly. She drew out 5 magic cards according to her own steps, and then her face lit up with joy. Among all her magic cards, the most important ones were the 3 bears, and the strength of the bear. The rest of the magic elf cards were basically useless cards. They were completely used to fill up the card deck. After all, if she could not even gather 5 cards in her hand, there was no need to play the game. And this time, her luck was off the charts. Among the 5 magic cards, there was a spirit bear. She had a total of 2 3-star magic elf cards. Spirit bear was one of them. The other was a white card called White Female Boxer. However, she did not draw it. In the starting round, having a spirit bear was enough. Moreover, there was a strength of the bear. Spirit and strength of the bear could increase its attack, which was as high as 1700 by 300, which was a total of 2600 attack. This even broke the limit of a 5-star card. Without a doubt, this was the most offensive combination in Diana's deck. And now she had drawn these 2 magic cards in the first round. Battle stage. 30s. Dake was still hesitating. Without hesitation, she started summoning the bear. Lighten. Light, the light, 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 light 2. Is a 3-meter-tall light elemental giant bear walked out of the light under countless gazes. Its face was wise and kind, like an old man telling stories to children in the yard. Diana actually summoned this bear in the first round. Outside the arena, White, who chose to watch the duel, could not help but be stunned. This bear that broke the charm of taboo love, with only the so-called fetter, left a deep impression on him. With an attack as high as 1700, it was almost immune to physical attacks. Even if one only looked at it from the front, it was the absolute nemesis of Troll. In order to defeat the bear, he could only rely on the ultimate skill of Radiant Python. Sacred Light. It could be said that his deck had been surpassed by Diana in terms of strength. I wonder how Dake will deal with it. With this thought, White looked at the summoning area of the red team. With Dake's summoning speed, he should be able to summon the magic elf faster than Diana. However, the summoning area of the red team was empty at this moment. What's going on? The same question appeared in everyone's mind. The first-year students probably did not have this kind of trouble, because they did not have more than 5 non-magic elf cards. Therefore, for a moment, they didn't expect that Dark actually didn't draw any magic elf card. However, Professor Cheong-si, who was the referee, could not help but smirk. If one did not draw any magic elf cards in the initial stage, what should they do? This was a topic that would be held in the next semester. Since someone's learning progress was ahead of time, he would naturally encounter the problem of being ahead of time. I wonder how he will deal with it. On the red team's platform, after the initial shock, Dake had regained his calmness. 1 round is 30 seconds. I must find a way to survive this 30 seconds. Diana's summoning speed is within 10 seconds, but it will not be much faster than that. The cooldown of the summoning skill is basically the same as the summoning time. Therefore, she can only summon a second time about 20 seconds after the start of the game. The second summoning can only be completed when the first round is about to end. After that, there will be another 10 seconds of cooldown. In other words, I only need to face 2 summonings. Dake used every minute and second of the preparation stage to think. At the beginning of the battle stage, he had already made his move. Diana summoned the spirit bear, and it took less than 10 seconds. The spirit bear was very powerful. However, no matter what she summoned, it was not important to Dake. Go, spirit bear. Diana was not confused because Dake did not summon the magic elf. Since it's Dake, there must be a reason for Dake. Based on trust, she attacked without hesitation. The spirit bear, which was as big as a small mountain, moved its 4 limbs and ran faster. The spirit bear's physical immunity was based on its existence as an energy body. This was different from a spirit. It was a physical body and could come into contact with objects. Pure physical attacks aimed at its body would not cause any substantial damage to it. It was more like an elemental seed. Hit! When the spirit bear was about to cross half of the field, a 1 cubic meter air brick suddenly appeared in front of it. It's the obstruction spell. Some of the students immediately realized the source of the air brick. However, the strength of the obstruction spell was obviously not enough. Boom! There was a loud noise. The air brick was instantly smashed by the spirit bear. Deanna was full of fighting spirit. If it's just the obstruction spell, it can't stop my bear. The obstruction spell only blocked the spirit bear for a few seconds and reduced its speed. Dake lowered his eyebrows and picked out the second magic card from his hand. The spirit bear sped up again. After a few seconds, it was like a heavy tank and fiercely crashed into the red magic ball. If this crash landed, the winner would be decided in an instant. Seeing that the spirit bear's head was about to hit the magic ball that represented the health of the red team suddenly flew up. The spirit bear pounced on nothing. Chapter 170. The flying magic ball stopped 4 meters in the air and was very close to the red team's platform. Dark looked at the transparent hexagonal barrier on the magic crystal ball. He did not let his guard down as he picked out the third magic crystal card. The duel with Sala had given him an idea. How to protect the magic ball from being attacked. Yes, as long as it could fly in the air. Therefore, Dake used the push incantation and tried to buy as much time as possible to push the magic ball up to its limit. 3 meters. The magic ball was originally 1 meter in the air. It added up to 4 meters. They naturally had the ability to float, and could reduce part of the impact so that they could float in the air. Remember in 1 second. https://vipcanshu. VIP. However, 4 meters in the air was obviously not enough. Even if the spirit bear's clumsy body did not look like it could jump very well, it was still 3 meters in the air when it was on all fours. Therefore, as long as it stood up, it could easily reach 4 meters in the air. Dake needed a total of 3.8 seconds to activate the next magic card and 3.8 seconds to summon it equals 7.6 seconds. This 7.6 seconds interval was the time it needed to escape. He had to ensure that the spirit bear would not react immediately and launch a second attack on the magic ball. According to the intelligence level of a normal magic fairy with 2.0, they would usually be stunned for a while after an attack. Unless the duelist had set the order beforehand, they would react faster. Moreover, the spirit bear's high speed would cause inertia and make it difficult for it to stop immediately after the sprint. Therefore, it was calculated theoretically. Even if Dake did not do anything, this 7.6 seconds would be easily passed. If it was a more powerful duelist, there would only be a 6-second interval between the 2 summons. This would make the battle process much smoother. In addition, Deanna could undoubtedly start the second magic summoning now. What will she choose? When he saw Deanna take out the second magic card from her hand, Dake heaved a sigh of relief. It's settled. On the blue team's platform, Deanna saw that the spirit bear's attack did not hit, but she did not immediately realize that it was the effect of the push incantation. This was because she had not actually created the push incantation. Without coming into contact with it, it was hard to imagine. Due to her trust in Dake, she even thought that Dake had summoned some sort of invisible magic fairy. Of course, this was just one of his guesses. In order to deal with the various possibilities, she instinctively made a choice according to her own brain circuit. That was to immediately use the strength of the bear. To make the spirit bear stronger, strong enough to deal with all the unknowns. Don't be fooled by the fact that only a certain part of her body was big. She actually had a muscular brain. Who would want to use their brains to solve a problem if they could solve it with their muscles? Dida. The second round began. Deanna's second summoning was finally completed. Bear's strength. The spirit bear's body was already glowing, but now that it was surrounded by the bear force, it glowed even brighter. Its brows relaxed, and its aged face seemed to have gained new vitality. It became visibly younger. His relaxed muscles instantly tightened and even expanded rapidly. This caused its originally huge body to swell up by a whole circle. This made it seem as if it could bite off the magic conducting ball if it raised its head. And it did indeed do so. However, the interval of 6 seconds had already passed. Dake had been holding the spell and did not release it until now. He suddenly activated it. The shadow of the magic conducting ball suddenly disappeared from everyone's sight. The spirit bear that missed for the second time roared in anger. The roar of the giant bear echoed in the arena. It's the flicker spell. White, who had some kind of obsession with the flicker spell, recognized it immediately. He suddenly raised his head and looked at the distance that was a little higher. As expected, he saw the magic conducting ball about 7 meters above the ground. The flicker spell and the push spell had slightly different casting requirements. The push spell could be used on any life or object, and the requirement to determine whether it was successful or not was whether it could be pushed. On the other hand, the flicker spell could only be used on oneself and the magic conducting fairy that was refined with one's magic power. In the broad concept of casting, the magic conducting fairy would be considered as a part of the sorcerer. This fulfilled the original condition that the flicker spell could only be used on oneself. 30 seconds was actually not a long time. Dake's right hand had already touched the first magic conducting card on the top of the deck. His spiritual energy was still tense. Among the remaining 2 cards in his hand, the magic bullet spell could only start from the position of the magic conducting card and release the magic bullet in a certain direction. Unless one had high-level magic power manipulation skills, it could only make it turn. Since the magic conducting ball's height was higher than the contestant stage, there was a casting angle. The obstruction spell could not block the power of the spirit bear at all. In order to deal with the next attack, he had to draw a useful magic conducting card. Fortunately, this was a duel with only 12 magic conducting cards. The next 2 magic conducting cards that he drew would not be too bad. Fade spell. Fantasy beast. Ibu. WTF. Dark clenched the magic card tightly and suddenly felt unwell all over. There were only 6 non-magical sprite cards, but they were all here now. His gaze swept across the arena. After the spirit bear missed its second attack, it took some time to find the red magic conducting ball 7 meters in the air. It stood up in anger and its height was higher than the contestant stage, extremely close to Dake's position. It was as if as long as it reached out, it could touch its furry bear fur. Deanna, who had also found the magic conducting ball, ordered, "Spirit bear, take it down." This giant bear that was bigger than a troll jumped up after its leg muscles exerted force. Although the distance it jumped was not high, but it did jump in the air. The bear's paw drew a powerful arc in the air and hit the magic conducting ball in the air. Quick! Dake had already timed the casting for the 3rd time. The black magic bullet was faster than the bear's paw. It hit the magic conducting ball from a 45-degree angle below. 10000900. The magic conducting ball with magic direct drop was like a golf ball that took off and shot towards the blue team's arena. But it did not ignore the air resistance and kept going up. Instead, it drew a parabola and slowly stopped under the effect of the floating mechanism of the magic conducting ball. At this moment it was still high up, but its position had changed from right above the red team's summoning area to right above the blue team's summoning area. The spirit bear with an attack power of 2600 did not hit its target and could only run back. This moment, if Deanna still did not realize that Dake did not summon the magic conducting fairy, then she was really stupid. But she did not think that Dake did not get the magic conducting fairy. Instead, she puffed up her cheeks and started to get angry. "Didn't you say you would give it your all?" Her beep was amplified by the loudspeaker and was relatively loud. Dake. Cough, cough, cough. Chapter 171. Red side. 900. Blue side. 1000. The health points of both sides were highlighted in the projection. Half of the second round had already passed. After Dake used the magic bullet spell, it had entered the cooldown period of the usual summoning spell. And there were only 3 magic cards left in his hand. Obstruction spell. Fade spell. Fantasy beast. Ibu website. https://vipcanchu. Vipe how to use these 3 magic cards to survive the next round. Among these 3 magic cards, Fantasy Beast, Ibu, was a core magic fairy card with a lot of potential. Its sure kill skill, Imitation, could use 100 MP to release most of the skills it imitated. But, Imitation was instantaneous. It could only imitate the skills that the opponent had just used. And it had to be used within Ibu's knowledge. The imitated target, the spirit bear, did not intend to use any skills. And if he used Ibu to harass it, under normal circumstances, the 3-star spirit bear could catch up with the 1-star Ibu in the time it took to yawn. I can only bet on this one possibility. There was no guarantee of victory in an on-the-spot battle. The so-called sure win was, at best, a probability of 999,999%. After Dake's cooldown period of the usual summoning spell was over, it immediately started to activate the next magic card. At this time, Diana's summoning cooldown period had also ended. She puffed up her cheeks and started to prepare for the 3rd summoning of this duel. Unfortunately, she didn't have a flying magical fairy in her hand. The skills of the few magic fairy cards were not long-range skills. If she had the push spell, she could push the magic ball down. But she only had the magic bullet spell in her hand. Because of the current angle, the magic bullet spell could only push the magic ball up. According to my summoning speed, there is only 1 summoning chance in the second round. Which one should I choose? Diana could not help but hesitate. But the spirit bear that had accepted her order did not stop. The spirit bear that ran back to the blue side from the red side stood up again. As if venting its anger at being toyed with, it leaped into the air and swung its paw, which was bigger than a millstone, at the same time. But before it could touch the magic sphere's life barrier, the bear paw came into contact with an invisible brick of air. The final obstacle spell. The gigantic bear paw smashed through the obstacle, but at the same time, it used up all of its remaining strength. By the time it came into contact with the magic conducting ball, it was already at the end of its flight. The magic power of the magic conducting ball plummeted. 900182. However, the life enchantment managed to hold on before it shattered. It was carried upwards by the remaining force, and flew to a height that the spirit bear could not reach. The spirit bear landed on the ground and looked up at the magic conducting ball that was flying further and further away. It was completely dumbfounded. Spirit bear, outside the arena, Professor Cheong-si couldn't help but facepalm. She had a feeling that the biggest bug hidden in this competition with incomplete rules was about to be exposed. In regular matches, the duelists were allowed to use their mana to guide the ball, so there was no such problem. But the first-year students did not have that kind of ability. Dida. It was time for the 3rd round. Dake took out 2 new magic conducting cards from the deck and smiled. Kettle Kettle. Ibu the fairy. It's decided to be you, Kettle Kettle. When Kettle Kettle materialized in the light, the magic bullet spell that Diana had been holding back for a long time was finally activated. The pitch-black magic bullet successfully hit the fixed target in the air under the guidance of her spiritual energy. 18282. The magic conducting ball on the red side was once again sent flying. But Diana had used up the last of her mana waves. She grabbed her cards, and her cute little face scrunched up like a dumpling. She watched as Dake summoned Illusory Beast. Ibu again. Only then did Diana react. She immediately ordered the spirit bear to attack Ibu. As long as the sacrificial item was destroyed before the sacrificial summoning was completed, the final winner of this match would still be her. When the spirit bear rushed out, Diana looked at Ibu, who was hiding behind Kettle Kettle, and Kettle Kettle, who was in front of Ibu. Suddenly, a solution appeared in her little head. The spirit bear stepped over Kettle Kettle. Although its body was shrouded in the glow of the superpower, equal share, only weakened its attack to 1,700 divided by 2 plus 900 is equal to 1,750. Facing Ibu, who was only a 1-star, this kind of weakening was not a big deal at all. Before Dake succeeded in summoning the sacrificial summoning spell, the spirit bear could catch up with Ibu and nip the danger in the bud. However, Ibu's body disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. It's the fading spell. The effect of the fading spell was very obvious. Obstacle spell, push spell, magic bullet spell, flicker spell, fading spell. Dark actually managed to refine all 5 universal magic incantations. The exclamations outside the arena were endless. Facing the threat of the spirit bear, Dake did not use the sacrificial summoning spell. Instead, he chose the shorter summoning spell, fading spell. The spirit bear was stunned by the completely invisible Ibu. After using power trick, the tentacles that came out of the hole in Kettle Kettle's shell became thicker and harder. With these tentacles as legs, its speed became slightly faster. In fact, the attack of a magic elf largely represented the strength of the elf. If the strength was strong enough, as long as the body structure did not obstruct it, it could be converted into speed. Therefore, after Ibu leveled up from 1-star to 2-star under the effect of Pride 2, its strength, speed, and other attributes all increased. As for the 1-star fantasy beast, Ibu, its speed was not much faster than Kettle Kettle. During the 5 seconds of invisibility, Ibu did not run very far. However, Kettle Kettle, whose attack became 2,200, successfully grabbed the spirit bear's heel. Physical attacks did not cause any substantial damage to the spirit bear. Therefore, Kettle Kettle did not attack. Instead, it grabbed the spirit bear's heel tightly with both legs, completely turning into a trap. While the effects of power cantrip were still in effect, the spirit bear could not escape. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Ibu turned around and looked at the spirit bear that couldn't go berserk because it couldn't turn around and attack its heel. It licked its paws and washed its face. Diana on the blue team's platform began to summon White Female Boxer after the cooldown ended. This 3-star white card that was drawn in the 3rd round might be her last hope. He was a little faster than Diana. Dake raised the last card in his hand. Within 3 rounds, he had completed a total of 9 summons in a matter of seconds. This requirement of magic power and mental power had far exceeded the normal range of a first-year student. He is indeed the son of the Valkyrie. As Professor Cheong-si exclaimed, the duel arena became a stage surrounded by fluttering ribbons and pink light. Ibu the fairy on the stage. Chapter 172. Fairy Ibu was already cute enough. With the passive skill Body of Charm, it was born with a charming aura. Although Body of Charm was only effective on the opposite sex, it was a seductive effect. Apart from seduction, if it was purely cute, girls would be attracted to it more easily. There were a few girls outside the arena who were attracted to it after it appeared. They wanted to rush into the arena and hug it. However, if they ignored the powerful strength hidden under its cute appearance, they would definitely be hurt. As Kettle Kettle and Illusory Beast, Ibu became the sacrificial offerings of the sacrificial summoning. There was no longer anyone who could hold the spirit bear back. The liberated spirit bear showed its majesty and angrily rushed towards the newly born Fairy Ibu. Fairy Ibu's body was surrounded by moonlight like a thin veil. It raised its head slightly and looked at the glowing giant bear. Its pink ribbons danced slowly. The spirit bear's attack was still only 1750, and the effect of equal distribution of strength was still in effect. Remember the website, Vipkanshu. 6 Fairy Ibu's attack was 1700. With a difference of only 50 points, it was a competition of many factors such as mobility, reaction, and technique. However, physical attacks were not very useful to the spirit bear. It was afraid of magical attacks that could cause substantial damage to energy bodies. The spirit bear with a defense value of 0 and a magical power value of only 1400 could be killed with a magical attack that dealt more than 1400 damage. However, Fairy Ibu did not do that. It raised its head, and there was a soft light in its eyes that was so charming that it looked like water was about to drip out. Heartsuit, heartsuit. Then, it opened its red lips and started to sing a seductive song. The skill voice of seduction was activated. While it caused substantial damage to the spirit bear, it also transformed the seduction effect of Body of Charm into the form of sound and expanded it. The spirit bear slowly stopped in its tracks. Its anger was appeased, and its eyes gradually became infatuated. A heartsuit symbol appeared in the depths of its eyes. The effect of Body of Charm was not 100% triggered. However, the spirit bear was obviously infatuated. This kind of infatuation was different from the simple brainwashing of taboo love. There was a part of it that was truly infatuated. If the spirit bear did not think that Fairy Ibu was charming enough, then the chances of it falling for her trick would be very low. However, after what happened to White, Dake didn't think that charming body's effect would last long. Moreover, the mental damage caused by the bewitching voice was slowly depleting the spirit bear's mana. However, as long as the spirit bear was slowed down, Fairy Ibu would be able to take the opportunity to attack the blue square's magic conducting ball. It turned slightly to look at the arcane orb and lifted its front leg with extreme elegance. But from the blue team's platform, a beam of light was suddenly released. Along with the light, Diana's second 3-star magic elf landed on the ground. White female boxer. Card name, White female boxer. Type, elf card. Level, *****. Race, human. Attribute, combat magic power. 800 attack, 1100 defense, 700 ultimate skill, none. From the data on the interface, it was almost at the level of a 2-star magic guide sprite. Plus, he didn't have a sure kill skill. The white female boxer could be said to be a useless card among the 3 stars. However, if it was only used as a 2-star card or a 3-star offering, it would still be quite useful. The white female boxer who was kneeling on one knee stood up calmly. From the color of her hair to her clothes to her skin, they were all snow white. The gloves on her hands were a display of her attack power. There was a human race among the magic guide sprites, but as mentioned before, this was only a classification similar to the devil race. However, they weren't really human. The human race magic guide sprites had more vocal organs, but their intelligence level of 2.0 didn't allow them to speak human language. On the blue team's platform, Diana stared at the spirit bear that was captivated by Fairy Ibu. While she hated it for not fighting back, she gave an order to the white female boxer that no one expected. Sister female boxer, throw the magic conducting ball and end everything. The moment she finished speaking, there was an uproar among the spectating students. Diana's order seemed simple, but it was beyond their expectations. Is this something that a human can think of? Doran became nervous. As expected of Diana, Luo Si opened his mouth but couldn't say anything for a long time. On the red team's platform, Dake was also shocked. Then he smiled. So there's this move. He made a prompt decision and gave an order. Fairy Ibu Moon Power. Thus, the most powerful spirit bear in the arena became a spectator. The white-haired female boxer with an enchanting and slender figure suddenly turned around and picked up the magic ball. Using the explosive force of her twisting waist, she exerted force with both hands and threw the metal ball that looked light but was actually abnormally heavy after losing the floating property from below with great force. She really didn't hesitate at all. She displayed the amazing execution of a female boxer. However, moonlight suddenly sprinkled down from the sky. Fairy Ibu opened her mouth, and the pure moonlight condensed into a ball in her mouth at an extremely fast speed. Then she suddenly released it. The moon power's light beam spread out faster than the blue magic conducting ball that was thrown out. It directly aimed at a position slightly below the red magic conducting ball. The light beam rippled like the Milky Way and lasted in the air for half a second. Then, the blue magic conducting ball crashed into it. Crack! Deanna pursed her lips. The battle is over. Winner, Dake Dimming. Following Professor Cheong-si's whistle, the duel entered its final end stage. Dake finally breathed a sigh of relief. He put down his empty hands and collected the used magic conducting cards from the table one by one. This duel made him realize the importance of card combinations. Although the common magic spell cards had their own uses, they lacked a link with a magic conducting fairy. If one's luck was bad, the duelist would be in trouble. However, he had no choice now. Let's rearrange it later. He raised his hand and put Fairy Ibu back into the magic conducting card. Then he looked at Deanna opposite him and walked down the platform first. If one wanted to improve, one had to learn how to summarize. The reason why he was in trouble in this duel was that he was too unlucky. The other reason was that he didn't have a good set of cards. However, the most fundamental reason was that the magic conducting cards in his hands were not comprehensive enough. There were too few magic conducting cards in the first tier. After this duel before the next one, the most important thing was to expand the card pool. Of course, this was also related to the fact that Deanna's card combination was strong enough. That Bear Spirit card combined with Bear Strength was really amazing. If Deanna's summoning speed was faster, the outcome would be hard to predict. Chapter 173. Dark, who came down from the contestant stage, quickly met up with Diana. Deanna pouted unhappily. If I knew that Dake didn't get a magic guide spirit, I would have summoned a new one the second time. Even if it was a useless card, I could still use it as a projectile. Dake chuckled. So no matter what you do, you should learn to use your brain first. Deanna complained. But I'm not smart. Dake. You'll get smart if you use it more. Okay, let's go next door and take a look. Venue 2. Also in the winners group, AI Ma Metissa's duel was still going on. Her opponent, the student from the Academy of Fools, was unexpectedly tenacious. Although the white card in his hand didn't have a killing move, its stats were good and its summoning speed wasn't slow either. Relying on the large number of white cards, he had been able to last until now. Some students did some calculations and found that he had summoned a total of 10 magic guide spirits by the end of the duel. Unfortunately, these magic guide spirits weren't strong enough. Remember, https://vipcanshu. VIP. My opponent in the next round is still AI Ma? Dake focused slightly and vaguely felt that AI Ma, who was still on the stage, was looking at him. This round of the competition was over. The winners group advanced to the next round. 1 Dake and 5 AI Ma advanced, while 2 Deanna and 3, student from the Academy of Fools, were relegated to the losers group. However, there were many examples of people coming from the losers group to win the competition. In addition to the strength of the deck, luck and tactics were also very important to the outcome of a duel. The contestants in the losers group summed up their experience and adjusted their deck or tactics. It was very likely that they could turn defeat into victory. In this round of the losers group, Sarah easily won against the boy from the Academy of Magic, who was also from the Academy of Magic. The student from the Academy of Knights narrowly defeated the student from the Academy of Fools and successfully advanced to the next round of the losers group. Noah and 5 were eliminated one after another. The new competition schedule was quickly released. Winners group Venue 1, 1 versus 5 losers group. Venue 2, 2 versus 7 Venue 3. Venue 1 versus Venue 9. Dake found a long bench and sat down. Then, he began to replenish the mana of the magic card and adjust the deck. Learning from the experience of the last duel, Dark's adjustment of the deck this time was mainly focused on the word streamlining. The situation of lacking the first-tier Magic Elven card couldn't be changed for the time being, and the Magic Elven card didn't have a chain effect. They could only try their best to reduce the probability of no monsters at the start, within the rules. If possible, it would be best to target AI Ma's deck as much as possible. But in reality this is very difficult. Dake first added Pride Eye back into the deck. Using Pride Eye to deal with Golden Treasure Chest was a relatively common tactic. After that, he temporarily simplified the rest of the magic cards and added Illusory Beast, Ibu, Trash Slime, and Kettle into the deck. The second tier of Magic Elven cards was still to be decided. In fact, Dake had thought of only carrying 5 Magic Elf cards as a deck. In that case, the starting 5 cards would all be available. However, if one thought about it carefully, one would realize that if it was a combination of 3 first-tier Magic Elf cards and 2 second-tier Magic Elf cards, as long as the opponent could summon a powerful 3-star Magic Elf like the Spirit Bear at the beginning of the first round, then Dark would almost certainly lose. Up to this point in the competition, the information about the player's deck was more or less exposed. As Dake gradually figured out the core magic cards of the other players also understood his core magic cards. For example, in the previous competition, Sarah used Sphinx Cat to lock Kettle, so he couldn't use Sacrifice to summon. And in his first-tier Magic Elf cards, Illusory Beast, Ibu and Trash Slime were both super weak. This caused him to be in a predicament. But this was actually not the best solution. To sacrifice to summon a 4-star Magic Elf, one needed Kettle plus Illusory Beast, Ibu, or Kettle plus Trash Slime. Then, as long as Dake summoned Illusory Beast, Ibu or Trash Slime, and then killed them, that was not a predicament, but a hopeless situation. The weakness of Kettle's slow movement speed was probably already exposed. The AI Ma would very likely choose to ignore Kettle and switch to killing Illusory Beast, Ibu or Trash Slime. As long as he killed them before the sacrifice summoning spell was completed, Dake would not be able to summon a 4-star Magic Elf at all. He did not have enough control over the sacrifice summoning spell, so his speed was not fast. So, keeping only 5 Magic Elf cards in the deck was no different from sending himself to death. He needed to ensure that there were additional cards to ensure the survival of Illusory Beast, Ibu or Trash Slime. Then I can add in a Fade spell. Also, to deal with the bug tactic of throwing the magic ball into the air, I need a Push spell. Magic Bullet spell and Obstruction spell can be temporarily simplified. Flash spell. Let's put it aside first. 3 second-tier Magic Elf cards are too many. Fairy Ibu has a long-range attack skill, so I have to keep it. Diru Beast, or Big Milk can be chosen. Diru Beast has the buff of Holy Ring, its stats are the best, and it has the highest mobility. Big Milk Can is a meat shield, and it is unbeatable when it rolls. But at the current stage, Big Milk Can is not as convenient as Diru Beast. Moreover, Diru Beast has a control skill, Cat Eyes. The results were Illusory Beast, Ibu, Trash Slime, Kettle, Fairy Ibu, Diru Beast, Pride Eye, Push Spell, Fade Spell. Only 8 Magic Elf cards. Starting with 5 cards, the probability of not getting a first-tier Magic Elf card was very low. In fact, if he were to reduce 1 card further, he could guarantee that he would get a first-tier Magic Elf card. But Dake did not do that, as he needed to increase his margin of error. AI Ma's summoning speed was faster than Diana's, and the cards would definitely be more unpredictable than Diana's. It would be very difficult to deal with. After Dake made the initial adjustments, he continued to replenish his mana while thinking. Then he suddenly had an idea. No, what if the base of this set of cards is reduced to 5 cards, such as Trash Slime, Kettle, Fairy Ibu, Diru Beast, and Pride Eye? What would happen? This train of thought woke him up in an instant, and he became much more clear-headed. In this competition where there was no limit to the number of cards, 5 cards was the bottom line. Pride Eye would be used to deal with golden treasure chest. Fairy Ibu would deal with high-altitude tactics. AI Ma did not have a magic elf card like Sphinx Cat that could lock down offerings, so it did not need 3 first-tier magic elf cards. As for how to ensure the survival of the offerings, it was necessary for Fairy Ibu and Diru Beast to exist together. Dake's train of thought became clearer, and he finally decided. The final result was Trash Slime, Kettle, Fairy Ibu, Diru Beast, Pride Eye. Time passed quickly. The contestants needed to hurry up and replenish their mana, and even half an hour was not enough. The students outside of the contestants were still passionately discussing the previous round of the competition, and did not find waiting boring at all. Half an hour passed in the blink of an eye. A new round of the competition had begun. Since the competition grounds had changed from 4 to 3, Professor Claire, who was temporarily in charge of the House of Fools, was able to free up her hands. Of course, she appeared in the winners' field 1 to watch Dake's competition. Among the rest of the students from the House of Aristocrats and the Academy of Knights were all gathered there. Most of the students from the School of Magic were watching Sarah's competition in Field 2. The students from the House of Fools were gathered in Field 3. When the competition was about to start, Dake and Deanna encouraged each other and went to different fields. Luosi followed Deanna. Deanna's opponent this round was contestant number 7 from the Academy of Knights. Her opponent was a boy with a bright face, who once encouraged White in their first-class competition. His temperament and body shape were like that of a standard paladin, and he was quite popular in the Academy of Knights. His name was Justin Wayne. Although Wayne was in the losers group, he was not weak. This duel was a test for Deanna. Dake thought about Deanna as he walked to the contestants' field. It was still the red field, and he was very familiar with the environment. First, he put the 5 magic cards into the card slot. After the card table was activated by magic, it automatically shuffled the cards. He looked at the 5 magic cards that could only be shuffled and smiled inexplicably. I'm afraid this is the last time in my life that I will use such a shameless tactic in a duel. On the other side, AI Ma Métis also went to the blue field. Looking at Dake dimming from afar, AI Ma clenched her fists tightly. In her first-class competition, she was defeated by Dake. That failure had also changed her life. She listened to Dake's advice, and tried to change herself a little. Finally, she got to where she was now. Looking down at the students who were cheering for her, AI Ma held her mouth and didn't let herself laugh happily. Deep in her heart, she really wanted to get more recognition. It's time for revenge. AI Ma raised her head again, and her eyes were shining. Dake then heard AI Ma's declaration. Dake, this time I will win. Dake was a little surprised, then smiled and said, Sure, I'm looking forward to it. The exchange between the two sides ended, and the game entered the countdown. Preparation stage. 30s. Dake immediately focused, and the magic flowing in his body maintained an extremely high activity. Then, he directly pulled out all 5 magic cards from the card slot. At this moment, the sharp-eyed audience immediately noticed that on the projection of the card table, Dake's card slot was no longer filled with magic cards. What's going on? He only brought 5 magic cards with him. Doran, who had been paying attention to Dake, opened his mouth wide in surprise. The fat student next to him wondered, could it be that he took the wrong deck? Of course that was impossible. A few students around him couldn't help but glance at him. Not far away, the 2 girls from the Knights Academy, Susan and Lucy, who always sat on either side of AI Ma, also noticed the number of cards Dake's deck. One of them was beaming with joy, while the other had a serious expression. Susan, who was beaming with joy, couldn't help but raise her voice. Only 5 magic cards, what if they are used up? Our family's Emma doesn't know how to show mercy to women. Seeing that the students of the Knights Academy were staring at her, Lucy quickly pushed her arm and whispered, Control yourself, I have a bad feeling. Professor Claire, who was standing behind the students, and Professor Cheong-si, who was the referee, looked at each other, and then smiled with folded arms. In short, the audience suddenly became alert. And the two players on the players' stage were not affected. Less than 30 seconds of thinking time was not a long time. AI Ma was thinking hard according to the cards in her hand, and did not pay attention to Dake. Among her 5 cards, one was Golden Treasure Box, and the other was Golden Beast. Golden Beast was a magic elf card that AI Ma had successfully refined in her introduction to magic class. At that time, Dake had refined Kettle Pot, Deanna had refined Earth Bear, White had refined Troll, and Luoboat had refined Ratman Cyborg. Golden Beast was refined with ancient gold coins as the core material. It had appeared in the previous few matches, and it was a mechanical type about 2 meters tall with a shell made of gold. The strength of Golden Beast had been demonstrated in several matches, and Dake had heard a little bit about it. Battle stage. 30s. The moment the words on the table changed, both players began to summon at the same time. Magic summoning. Magic summoning. Dake was still faster than the others, and the white light from the magic card fell on the red summoning area. After Kettle Pot materialized, a 4-legged head came out of its shell. It blinked and moved a little on the spot. Then it went back into the shell, only revealing its small head. Dake had given it a defense command before the match, so it was very cautious now. Then, only a few seconds later, AI Ma successfully summoned Golden Beast. In the 8th second of the battle stage, the Golden Beast that appeared in the blue summoning area looked like a golden Taowu from its appearance. It was the shape of the stone lions that were often placed on both sides of the door. But it was more powerful and more ferocious. Dake had seen something similar in the book Golden King and the Secret Treasure. After AI Ma summoned the Golden Beast, she immediately ordered it to rush to the red summoning area. From the appearance, Kettle Pot was not comparable to the Golden Beast at all, as if it could be crushed with one bite. But of course AI Ma would not be confused by Kettle Pot's appearance, and her thoughts were very clear. She approached the summoning area, waited for Dake to summon for the second time, and then killed the other magic elf that was used as a sacrifice. 2 in 1 4,000 words. Chapter 174. Card name, Golden Beast. Type, Sprite card. Level, *****. Race, Machine. Attribute, Steel. Magic power, 1000. Attack, 1300. Defense, 1500. Ultimate skill, Golden Devour. The Golden Beast was an ancient machine. Conceptually, it was a product of forgotten technology. It was similar to a golem, but unlike a golem, its entire body was made of machinery. Website. https://vipcanshu. VIP. Strictly speaking, the Golden Beast that was refined using magical technology was not the same as the real Golden Beast, because it did not have a mechanical core. The mechanical core was the heart of all ancient machines. Until today, the only remaining mechanical core in the world was kept in a museum. On the other hand, the Golden Beasts that were refined using magical technology were mechanical cores that were replaced by the special life mechanism of the magical card. This also made them different from the real Golden Beasts. AI Ma's Golden Beast was mainly for defense, but its attack was not to be underestimated. Its ultimate skill, Golden Devour, was a godly skill. Under AI Ma's command, the Golden Beast stretched its limbs and ran toward the red summoning area in the blink of an eye. Immediately after, Dake began to cast the second normal summoning spell. Not long after the Golden Beast started, Dake had already completed the summoning. A ray of white light came out from the second magical card in his hand. Under Dake's deliberate guidance, the white light landed on Kettle's shell. It then turned into a solid form. It was the trash slime. Before this, Dark had instinctively considered the stronger illusory beast, Ibua, as a model, so much so that he thought that after Kettle's weakness was exposed, it would be hard for it to protect the one-star magic guide fairy as a sacrifice. That kind of thinking was correct. But if illusory beast, Ivan, was replaced with trash slime, Kettle would be able to protect it. This was because trash slime's volume was even smaller than an apple when it was condensed. As long as trash slime was hidden in the shell, it would be foolproof. After all, this was a real duel and not a card game. Breaking through the inherent thinking of playing cards, one would discover many points that could be used. Under Dake's orders. With a slurp sound, the trash slime drilled into Huahu's shell. This combination of chong directly stunned the audience, the professor, and AI Ma on the stage. Even the golden beast stopped in its tracks. It widened its eyes and used its intelligence level of 2.0 to think about how to carry out its master's mission. The result was needless to say. If it could think, then it wouldn't be an intelligence level of 2.0. The sacrificial summoning couldn't be stopped. AI Ma drew a magic card from her hand and immediately gave a new order to the golden beast. Bypass that kettle and attack the magic ball directly. Upon receiving its master's new order, the golden beast immediately raised its head and roared to raise its spirits. Then, it suddenly leaped up and started running again. However, Kettle was summoned directly in front of the magic sphere. The kettle in its normal form was 0.6 meters tall. The initial height of the magic conducting ball was 1 meter. It only needed to stretch its neck as much as possible or use its tentacles to prop up its body, and it would be easier to reach the magic sphere. However, the diameter of the magic sphere was 0.3 meters, which was equivalent to the height of little Ivan. The magic sphere with the life enchantment was even bigger. Therefore, touching the magic sphere was only the beginning. If one wanted to fish it out, they would need to use another force. The magic sphere's levitation characteristic was based on applying a telekinesis to itself to fix it in a certain position in the air. If one wanted to move it, they would need to resist this telekinesis. Fortunately, the telekinesis wasn't too much. Even if it didn't use power trick, Kettle could still fish out the magic sphere. Then it would hide behind it. This kind of hiding didn't have much practical significance. After all, there were holes in all directions. However, it could lure the golden beast to approach Kettle. And Kettle would be able to grasp the timing and give the golden beast a fierce punch. This punch might not be able to knock down the golden beast, but it could at least buy some time. The magic power of the magic sphere's life enchantment was 1,000. The power of a 3-star magic elf was 1,500. After power sharing, there were only 750 left. The magic sphere's life enchantment could completely withstand a blow without shattering. This would buy some time. If it wasn't enough, Kettle could even throw the magic sphere into the air. This golden beast wouldn't fly, right? Kettle's eyes glowed with the light of superpower. When the golden beast approached, it immediately used power sharing. The golden beast and Kettle's attack power both became 650. Then Kettle used power trick again to switch attack and defense. Its tentacles suddenly became thicker and bigger, and even the outline of muscles appeared. However, the golden beast suddenly leaped and jumped over its head. Izzizi. Kettle raised its head, and its head turned 180 degrees with the golden beast. It saw this cyborg land its front paw in an extremely smooth manner. It used the momentum to turn around, opened its bloody mouth angrily, and bit at the magic sphere. Crack! The golden beast's sharp teeth pierced through the life enchantment, and obvious cracks appeared on the enchantment. 10000 in a hurry. Kettle stretched out its tentacle and pushed the magic sphere away. The moment it pushed the magic sphere away, it rolled up another tentacle and hammered upwards. Boom! With this hammering, the golden beast's huge head suddenly tilted back. Its magic power plummeted. However, with its mechanical heavy metal structure, the golden beast didn't fly away from the impact. Then, it ferociously clawed at Kettle. The same time, AI Ma completed her second normal summoning, and a gold coin with wings appeared in the blue side's summoning area. Not long after, Dake's sacrificial summoning was finally completed. Kettle, who was fighting against the golden beast, suddenly turned into light, and a pink fairy with ribbons jumped out of the sacrificial summoning circle. Fairy Ibu, who appeared once again, caused a commotion outside the arena. Only AI Ma's expression didn't look so good. However, she remained calm. She pointed her finger, and the gold coin with wings suddenly accelerated, like a golden light crossing the arena, and pouncing towards the golden beast. This moment, Fairy Ibu had just appeared, and when she looked up, she saw the ferocious golden beast. There was a difference in height between the two, and the difference in size was even greater. However, the golden beast was the one who was nervous. Fairy Ibu opened her mouth slightly, and a note was already leaking out. Heartsuit, heartsuit. The golden beast subconsciously took a step back. AI Ma, who was on the blue side's platform, suddenly roared, "Cover your ears!" The golden beast's mechanical ears immediately covered downwards, and it couldn't hear anything else. Its already low magic power suddenly stopped falling. As expected. Seeing this, AI Ma regained her confidence. She immediately shouted, "Gold coin bug, parasitize!" The flying gold coin stuck to the spine of the golden beast with a plop. Then its body sank, and it actually merged with the golden beast's golden shell. Then the golden beast raised its head and roared, and from both sides of its body, 2 balls of liquid metal suddenly drilled out. When they formed armor to cover its entire body, they actually transformed into a pair of golden wings. The golden beast could really fly. Card name, Golden Bug. Type, Fairy card. Level, Race, Mechanical. Attribute, Steel. Magic power, 100. Attack, 0. Defense, 100. Ultimate skill, Golden Parasitism. The golden bug with 0 attack power was so weak that it could be killed with a slap. However, after it used its ultimate skill, Golden Parasitism, it could increase the magic power and defense of the host by 300. More importantly, it could bestow the host with a pair of golden wings. The wings came with its own ultimate skill, Feather Arrow. Card name, Golden Beast, Golden Parasitism. Type, Fairy card. Level, 4all race, Mechanical. Attribute, Steel. Magic power, 1300. Attack, 1300. Defense, 1800. Ultimate skill, Golden Devour Feather Arrow. Its magic power limit increased by 300, its defense value broke through the normal peak that 3-star elves could reach, and its mobility skyrocketed. This golden beast actually had the demeanor of a 4-star magic guide elf. And its magic power, which had already reached the bottom, also recovered to a relatively healthy state because of the increase in its magic power limit. When the effect of equal distribution of power gradually disappeared, its threat would skyrocket. Me. Fairy Ibu stopped singing. In front of a mechanical type, the effect of Charming Body would be greatly reduced. Fairy Ivan, whose attack power was only 1700, would find it difficult to break through the golden beast's defense. Moreover, the compatibility between the fairy and steel types was not good. The only advantage was that Fairy Ivan's defense was as high as 1300, which happened to be a state where the golden beast would find it difficult to break through. Dake's thoughts were quickly turning. This seemed to be the first time that AI Ma used the ultimate skill of the winged gold coin in front of the public. The so-called gold coin bug was a magic guide elf with a similar function to the Armed series item cards. With the gold coin bug's parasitism, the golden beast would have the ability to fight against Fairy Ivan. Fortunately, Dake had already anticipated the possibility of such a situation. Thus, he had prepared a Diru beast among the 5 cards in the deck. However, before the second sacrificial summon, he still had to do some experiments. Moon power. Fairy Ivan's forehead suddenly scattered the light of the moon. She opened her mouth slightly, and those specks of light quickly gathered in her mouth, forming a ball of moonlight, which she suddenly spat out. The ball of light blossomed at the exit, turning into a light beam with a wide range. The target was the blue magic guide ball. People often forgot that breaking the magic guide ball's life barrier was the initial goal of the duel. However, AI Ma clearly did not forget. The golden beast had already made its move when Fairy Ivan began to accumulate power. When the moon power was shot out, it had already flapped its wings and flew over, blocking the path of the light beam. The golden beast, which had taken the brunt of the fairy's ultimate skill, stood motionless in the midst of the moonlight's punishment due to its 1800 defense and the steel type's partial immunity to the fairy's skills. Fairy Ivan frowned slightly and let out a short cry. Then, she suddenly lowered her head and pounced on the golden beast in front of her like the wind. The golden beast, which had descended from the sky to block the moon power, didn't even have time to fly before Fairy Ivan slammed into its head. Its head wasn't covered by the liquid metal produced by the gold coin bug's parasitism, so its defense was still at its original 1300. This was the difference between reality and the game. The golden beast's magic value dropped again. It was instantly crippled. It hurriedly flapped its wings and flew high, dodging Fairy Ivan's finishing blow. After Fairy Ivan's attack missed, she took the opportunity to pounce on the blue magic guide ball. This moment, Dake sensed that something was wrong and immediately said, "Return to defense." Fairy Ivan turned on her toes, and like a ballet dancer on stage, she spun and twisted her body, decisively abandoning her target and following her master's orders. She stood in front of the red magic guide ball to protect it. In the sky, the golden beast flapped its wings, and feathers suddenly stood up from the pile of golden wings. Feather arrow! It was almost at the same time as AI Ma's shout. The golden beast shot out a golden feather arrow from both sides. 2 golden rays of light flashed and hit the body of Fairy Ibu, who had turned into a shield. However, Fairy Ivan, whose magic value was as high as 1900, only lightly landed on the ground, indicating that it was just a drizzle. With a light shake, she shook off the golden feather. The golden beast, who had released the feather arrow, had exhausted all its magic, and only had a sliver of health left. AI Ma looked at the data displayed on the golden beast's magic guide card and felt more and more anxious. The pressure that Dake gave her in the duel wasn't something that any other student could compare to. On the other hand, Dake was still calm and unruffled. While he was waiting for AI Ma to come up with a countermeasure, he was also waiting for the cooldown of the sacrificial summon to end. Drip! Only half a minute had passed since the attack, and defense was so tight that it made it hard for people to breathe. The duel entered the second round. AI Ma began to draw cards, but both sides' summons were still on cooldown. At this moment, Fairy Ivan's ribbon stretched out and rolled up the 2 golden feathers on the ground. Then her gaze focused. Without Dake's command, she suddenly swung her ribbon and used one of the golden feathers as a projectile. Shot directly at the golden beast. Swoosh! The golden beast, who only had a sliver of health left, almost instinctively used its golden wings to block the attack. At this moment, Fairy Ivan took advantage of the gap and shot a second golden feather at the blue magic guide ball. Crack! The golden feather carried the power of 1700 attack power and forcefully pierced through the blue magic guide ball's life barrier. AI Ma looked at the golden treasure box. In her hand, her face ashen. The battle is over. Winner, Dake Dimming. End stage. Dake waved his hand. Fairy Ivan instantly split into 3 rays of light and entered the 3 magic guide elf cards one by one. This was how a magic guide duel was. In a situation where there was a great disparity in strength, the outcome could be determined in just 1 round. You're still a little too young. Dake glanced at AI Ma and said in a low voice, "The most fundamental reason why it's hard for a first-year student to defeat a first-year student is always the summoning speed. 2 in 1 4150 words. Chapter 175. Although Dake had already lowered his voice, the loudspeaker in the table still amplified his voice. AI Ma suddenly realized that she had been so engrossed in studying the murals during this period that she had neglected the most basic summoning practice. Although 8 seconds of summoning was fast enough for a little mage at her age, it was only at the level of White Gouda. It was far from Dake dimming. When she had completed 2 summons, Dake was about to complete his sacrificial summoning. The difference in basic ability between the two was like a chasm. With this little ability, how could she talk about winning it back? When she thought of the opening declaration she had made because of her confidence in the deck, AI Ma felt endless shame. She stayed on the contestant stage for quite some time. When she came back to her senses, the contestant stage was already empty. As soon as Dake stepped down from the stage, he was surrounded by the students of the Noble Academy. The students congratulated him for entering the finals as the first place of the winners group. Remember the URL, Vipkanshu. 6 after he politely responded, he led the students of the Noble Academy to the second venue. Deanna was dueling with the number contestant, Justin Wayne. At the moment when the duel between Dake and AI Ma had ended, the duel between Deanna and Wayne seemed to have just begun. Both sides had 2 magic elves on the stage. Wayne's magic elves seemed to be of the knight series. One was a human knight, and the other was an orc knight. Both were magic elves of the fighting type. Deanna's venue was the Spirit Bear, and the Bear of Earth. The Spirit Bear gained an extremely violent strength under the strength of the bear's buff. However, Wayne seemed to have used a special magic card to fix it in place. Deanna could only use the Bear of Earth to barely deal with it. However, when the third bear was summoned, the Bear of Earth relied on the bear's bond to increase its magic power, attack, and defense by 600 points. This allowed it to obtain a powerful panel that even a 3-star magic elves couldn't have as a 2-star, and it successfully killed Wayne's human knight. After that, the Spirit Bear's immobilization was finally lifted. In the midst of the roaring of the 3 bears, the third enchanted elf that Wayne had summoned in a hurry did not work. It was completely destroyed by Deanna. The competition finally came to an end. On the other side, student number 1 of the Yard of Fools, who had relied on a large number of white cards to survive until now, was defeated by Saraswati. The competition had come to an end, and it was time for the loser group to decide the winner. AI Ma, who fell from the winners group, would fight the winner between Deanna and Sarah. The final winner would be able to challenge the champion of the winners bracket, Dake Dimming. Losers Group, Venue 1, Venue 2 versus Venue 9. Dake then realized that he had made a mistake in his calculations. There would be an extra 30 minutes, but it was not a big deal. When they were preparing for the next round, Deanna was obviously nervous. She looked like she really wanted to go back to the finals and compete with Dake for the championship again. However, Saraswati's card deck was stronger than expected, and her summoning speed was even faster than AI Ma and White. She was second only to Dake among the first-year students. In the duel with Dake, Sarah only used a set of targeted cards. She also had a powerful 3-star magic card that she could not summon. Deanna's strongest combination was Spirit Bear and Strength of the Bear. Once Spirit Bear was restricted by Sphinx Cat's Shadow Stomp, her combat power would be greatly reduced. When both sides' trump cards were exposed one after another, some of the results could be predicted. After half an hour, both sides who had finished replenishing their mana entered the arena. At this moment, except for Professor Cheong Si, who was still acting as the referee, the other 3 professors were free. They were watching the duel outside the arena, and they were not optimistic about Deanna. The result was as expected. Deanna stopped there and left the arena with the 4th place of the first-year students. In the next round, Losers Group, Venue 1, No versus No, AI Mametis versus Saraswati. The attention of this match was no less than the semi-finals of the winners group. Because there was only one arena, all the first-year students gathered here. AI Ma, as the representative of the College of Knights, would compete with Sarah, the representative of the College of Magic. The College of Knights and the College of Magic, which did not have much interaction with each other, suddenly became hostile. Dake and Deanna, who had already broken free from the disappointment, stood together and watched the match as spectators. AI Ma and Sarah were both defeated by him in the losers group, and both of them did not use all their magic cards in the duel with him. Therefore, watching this duel could also be used as a way to gather information before the final. Dake watched very seriously. Deanna said cheerfully, "Dake, who do you think has a better chance between the two of them?" Dake thought for a while and shook his head. "It's hard to tell." The difference in summoning speed between the two of them was limited. Although Sarah was faster, it was not to the extent that there was a qualitative difference. Also, each of the magic cards had its own strengths. Therefore, it was hard to tell. Deanna pouted. "I think Sarah will win." Dake asked curiously, "Why?" Deanna, "Because she beat me." Dake's mouth tightened. Luo Si on the side joked, "Deanna, in the first intraclass competition, Sarah was eliminated by AI Ma." Deanna, "Now it's different from the past." Contestant no. 5 AI Ma Métis, contestant number 9 Saraswati. As the best in their respective academies, especially in terms of learning attitude, they are worthy of being studied by everyone. They were able to come this far because of their hard work and the display of their knowledge. I hope you can understand that although the College of Magic does not have as high a requirement for knowledge as the College of Ancient Magic, it is still a learned profession. Contestants from both sides, please enter the arena. Professor Cheong Si's voice echoed in the arena. AI Ma and Sarah went up to the contestants' stands. "Hey, I heard you lost in the first round." After Sarah started the card table, he said casually. AI Ma's face changed after hearing that. The effect was outstanding. Thinking back, she seemed to have regarded Dake as her competition target since the beginning of the semester. However, until now, she was only one step ahead in the study of murals. And that was under the circumstance that Dake was not interested in it. The last round of the competition made her aware of her shortcomings, and she would work hard to correct them in the future. However, all of this had nothing to do with the woman in front of her. AI Ma responded with a little anger. "I lost in the second round, but didn't you lose in the third round? After I defeat you, I will return to the finals and compete with him again." Sarah smiled sweetly. "What a coincidence, I was thinking the same thing." The temperature between the two of them dropped to the freezing point, and the duel was about to start. Preparation stage. 30s. Both of them drew cards at the same time. AI Ma pursed her lips. The corners of Sarah's mouth faintly curled up. But in fact, both of them drew the magic card that they wanted the most. Battle stage. 30s. Magic summoning. Sarah pulled out a magic card and held it high in her hand. Her summoning speed was faster than AI Ma's, and her momentum was overwhelming. What appeared in the blue summoning area was a magic elf that was not summoned in Dake's duel. Dead mummy. It was a mummy that was wrapped in snow-white bandages all over its body. Card name, Dead Mummy. Type, Elf card. Level, *****. Race, Undying species. Attribute, Dark. Magic power, 1000. Attack, 100. Defense, 1600. Ultimate skill, Feign Death. The dead mummy was 2 meters tall, but both of its arms were tightly bound by bandages on both sides of its body. Only a small gap was revealed on its face where its eyes were. Its legs were tightly bound together, and it could only bend its knees and jump. It had no attack power at all. At the cost of only 100 points of attack power, the dead mummy obtained more than 1,500 points of defense value. His killing move, Feign Death, had been used in the previous battle. It was the embodiment of dead but not dead. It had 2 lives. The first appearance. The 2 bandages hanging from both sides of the dead mummy's abdomen began to move. This was its only attack method, but its attack power was about the same as the 1-star Little Ivan's Massa. Under everyone's gaze, the mummy actually used the bandages to pick up the floating magic ball in the air, wrapped it around it, and pressed it into its stomach. Its stomach was originally bulging, but when it was pressed down, it actually sunk in. More than half of the magic ball was pressed into its stomach just like that. The two bandages wrapped a few more rounds, and the magic ball was completely fixed in place. Then, it hid in the corner of the arena, back facing the arena, and crouched down with its hands on its head. This was Sarah's other tactical system, the ostrich tactic. Relying on the 2 lives of the dead mummy, it completely protected the magic ball. Once the opponent was unable to break through the defense of the dead mummy, Sarah would be in an invincible position. On the other side, although AI Ma was slightly slower, she also summoned her magic guide sprite. It was the golden beast that had appeared before. The golden beast's attack power was only 1,300 points, and it was unable to break through the flawless dead mummy. AI Ma's face was slightly gloomy, and she did not attack rashly. Instead, she silently waited for the cooldown. Both parties appeared to be very calm. Few seconds later, Sarah began to summon and activate the second magic guide card. It was a Sphinx cat card. The appearance of the black hairless cat with golden pupils made the students of the magic school who had some understanding of it cheer. After that, AI Ma also summoned her second magic guide sprite. It wasn't the gold coin bug, but another treasure chest 777. It was different from the treasure chest monsters that could be seen everywhere in the dungeon. There was a joystick on the side of the treasure chest 777, and there was a square box on the lid that could display 3 numbers side by side. Pulling the joystick would cause the numbers to flip like a slot machine from 0 to 9. Once it turned to 777, it would be good luck. Card name, 777 Treasure Chest Monster. Type, Sprite card. Level, Race, Fairy Species. Attribute, Normal. Magic Power, 700. Attack, 700. Defense, 700. Ultimate Skill, 777. As soon as the treasure chest 777 appeared, it automatically pulled the joystick. The 3 numbers on the lid of the treasure chest immediately began to flip. 3 seconds later, the joystick rebounded, and the numbers stopped flipping. 233. The treasure chest monster did not change at all. There was silence for a few seconds. It turned around abruptly and swallowed the magic ball. The treasure chest 777 did not have the excellent defense ability of the dead mummy, but it could run and jump. The first round ended with a confrontation between the 4 magic guide sprites. Unexpectedly, both sides tacitly did not attack. But this was more like the calm before the storm. Second round, 30s draw cards. It's here. Aima's eyes flashed. Among the 2 new cards in her hand, one was the gold coin bug. She began to summon without hesitation. The gold coin with wings flew out shakily. Gold parasite. 6 small mechanical legs stretched out from below the gold coin bug and pierced into the spine of the gold beast with a plop. Then the parasite began. Roar! Accompanied by the gold beast's roar, the liquid metal that drilled out from both sides of its body formed an even thicker golden armor on its body. Then, a pair of golden wings suddenly spread open. Magic power, 1,1300. Attack, 1,300. Defense, 1,500 1,800. The gold beast that suddenly spread its wings and flew high up. With a flap of its wings, a strong wind blew, and in an instant, it turned into a golden arrow and shot straight out. Sarah raised her finger. In her summoning area, the Anubis, that had just been summoned suddenly growled, and the shadow under its feet suddenly spread rapidly in the direction of the treasure chest monster. The shadow moved first, and the hidden shadow ambushed. It was Shadow Hunt. The body of the Anubis followed the shadow and suddenly attacked. Its sharp claws slashed across in an instant, leaving 3 extremely obvious scratches on the body of the 777 treasure chest monster. The magic of the 777 treasure chest instantly decreased by about 200 points. Until then, the gold beast flew above the dead mummy. However, it did not attack with its claws and teeth. Instead, it grabbed the neck of the dead mummy and tried to drag it up into the sky. However, the Sphinx cat arrived in the blink of an eye and stepped on the shadow of the gold beast. Shadow step was activated. The gold beast froze. Even so, Ima did not panic. Sarah's Sphinx cat had been exposed once, and she was already on guard. The summoning speed of the two sides was only a little more than a second apart. Coupled with thinking, drawing cards, and the appearance time of the magic elf summoning, such a small difference was almost negligible. In the second summoning of the second round, AI Ma used the golden treasure chest. The Sphinx cat was immediately attracted by the golden light emitted by the treasure chest, and its eyes turned into the phi symbol that represented the holy coins. Just for this round, the Sphinx cat was controlled by AI Ma and interrupted the shadow step. The gold beast that regained its freedom tore it apart with its claws. The Sphinx cat was left with only a little bit of health. However, a blood magic array suddenly appeared under its feet and absorbed the little bit of health in an instant. The Sphinx cat turned into light and retreated. A grayish-white distorted shadow shot out from the blood magic array and drilled into the body of the gold beast. The mechanical-type gold beast actually let out a painful wail. 2-in-1 4100 words. You're tuning in to the Whispers of Romance YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.